Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Kamikaze Chicken. This debate is going to touch on a fair few topics. Obviously, this panel represents a diversity of opinion. Not all the views held by myself tonight are held by Chimpy, and this is almost certainly true for my opposition also. With this being said, one of the complicating factors with reaching any long-term sustainable solution with regards to the ongoing conflict through diplomacy needs to be the recognition of certain facts of the matter and the willingness to put aside team sports and recognize these facts. Topics are matters of fact, not matters of opinion. Whether something is or is not a war crime is a matter of fact under international law and is not a matter of opinion. Whether a state is or is not an apartheid state is a fact of international law and is not a matter of opinion. Whether a conflict constitutes or does not constitute ethnic cleansing is a fact of international law and not a matter of opinion. In order to get to any solution, it is important that we again agree on these facts, and these are the facts that we will be talking about tonight. Thank you very much.
Okay, Yazan, you can get a minute and a half.
I believe Jihadist, do you have your opening statement already, or is Jihadist doesn't have an opening statement?
Jihadist, are you here?
I mean, Jihadist has his opening statement before me. Jihadist.
Assalamu alaikum, come back. Just have to get some water. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Salatu wassalamu ala Muhammad wa ala alihi Muhammad wa ala ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. And hereafter. Hello, Ikhwa. My name is Jihadist. I'm sure you guys known me for quite a while. I've been on the server for quite a bit. I have a Bachelor of Arts with honors in political science and government, and I'm here to defend the position as to why Palestine is inherently innocent of these charged crimes, oppositional to the Zionist agenda, and to provide evidence as to why the Israeli defense and the Israeli speakers in general do not uphold the principles of the international community, nor of the United Nations, nor of any of their own comprehensions and the treaties that they themselves signed. So without further ado, I'm very looking forward to this debate, and I do hope that the opposition has come prepared with all the answers to the evidences that we are going to put forth.
Okay, perfect. Yazan, do you have a statement as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. My name is Yazan, as some of you may already know, and I want to thank everyone for coming out to view this lengthy debate. Today, Brother Jihadist and I will be advocating for the side of the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, as well as the goals of the Palestinians and their supporters and brethren. With that being said, this conflict is not exclusive in interest or importance to just Palestinians or even a particular religion or ethnicity, as this ongoing conflict has been and still is a humanitarian crisis and a major international concern. Without discrimination or disregard for other issues in the world today, this conflict happens to be a key central point in the grand scheme of affairs in the Middle East, as well as for the affairs of the Ummah. Among the key points of this debate, we will be covering the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians, the various crimes committed against them from the Israeli side, as well as the apartheid system set in place, and October 7th / the war on Gaza, all as of today and throughout history. We strongly believe that the Palestinians have the rights to, at the very least, the 1947-48 borders following UN Resolution 181. However, due to many other interests and conflicts with the solution as of now, we will be taking a different approach, which will be the advocacy for the goals and general efforts of Hamas, the government of Gaza, whom advocates for the 1967 borders as an appropriate solution. As many of us know, Israel is the enemy of the Middle East, the enemy of Palestinians, the enemy of Muslims, and the enemy of those who are interested in peace around the world. We will, of course, go over the acts and heinous crimes of this bastard regime and state, as well as the necessity and resistance and jihad from all fronts. May Allah grant us victory in this debate and grant the Ummah victory in this long-standing conflict. Ameen.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we're going to go to the positive claim section now. Kamikaze and Zionist, you will have 4 minutes for your opening statement regarding positive claim number 1.
Okay, just to clarify, positive claim number one was Elijah's baby, so he did write the introduction to this. So
Right.
I'm going to go off the top of my head as much as possible here.
Yep.
Um, to begin to assess the claim that Palestinian Arabs are not indigenous to the land, we must clarify our terms first. It is in this we seek to establish only that the Palestinian Arabs do not, in the main, descend from the land that they claim, and that they have at most an equally strong source of their land claim to Israel's Jewish residents. To establish this, we must examine Arab immigration to the land during the period of the British Mandate. Whilst I'm sure everyone in this call is familiar with the Jewish Aliyah to the land of Israel after 1881, 20 years before the publishing of Herzl's Old New Land, and the point at which Arafat decided the Nakba, fewer will be familiar with the vast amount of Arab immigration into the land during this time. One Hamas leader went so far as to admit so publicly in the late 1980s that fewer than 50% of Palestinians living in Gaza descend from those who began the 20th century in historic Palestine. Indeed, there were some 141,422 who Arabs legally immigrated to mandatory Palestine within just the 9 years of 1922 and 1931. The first and second census of the Mandate period, and would account for 44% Arab residents at the time. During the subsequent 16 years leading up to the creation of the State of Israel, the increase in the Arab population of the Mandate was 2.7% per year. Whilst there have been no studies into the question, it seems implausible to conclude that this occurred as a result of a natural growth in population. Aside from the fact that Nigeria, currently with a birth rate of 5.6 and an average age of 15, is experiencing a 2.4% annual population growth, the surrounding Arab states in the region were all experiencing an annualized population growth rate below 2%, assuming the natural Palestinian Arab growth rate during this time to be 2%, the highest amongst its Arab neighbors, and in an area that had not only seen population decline in the decades prior to 1880, we are left with the 80,000 unaccounted for Arab residents for whom the only plausible explanation is that of immigration. It goes without saying that this data does not count first-generation immigrants. This leaves us with the preposterous position of saying that a Jew who came to the Yishuv in 1920s, fleeing Polish persecution, is a colonizer, but an Egyptian or Syrian or Iraqi Arab that came to Haifa in the 1940s seeking work is a local indigenous resident of the land.
Okay. Since your friend is not gonna go, it will be Yazan
Yep.
next. Yeah, 4-minute counter whenever you're ready. It'll be Yazan.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. No worries. So the claim that Palestinian Arabs are not indigenous to the land is absolutely preposterous. So far to the point that, along with genetic studies as well as recognition by the United Nations itself, which is the head organization that fathered this bastard state known as Israel, we know all too well that the Palestinian Arabs of today are indeed indigenous and native to the land, tracing back to DNA as far back as the Golden Age, the Bronze Age populations that existed at the time. Ironically, of course, it is ahistorical and a-religious of the Jews themselves to claim that the Canaanites themselves are not indigenous to the land. And of course, the descendants of the Canaanites would happen to be the Palestinians of today. We have numerous studies to indicate this, as well as, for example, Zionist, or former Zionist, I should say, Dr. Nathan Pearson, who is a Jewish geneticist, revealing significant data on the genetic diversity in modern-day Palestinians, as well as the Israeli Jewish population. So I'm sorry to burst your bubbles for the Zionists, but the average Palestinian has more of an inherent claim to the land by means of DNA alone than the average Ashkenazi who was poured in from the later Aliyahs of the 20th century. We don't simply play the claim of I am owed this land just because of my race. However, if we do play that claim, then unfortunately the Palestinians are going to come out on top as who has more ethnic or genetic tie to the land itself. Only the Jewish Zionist population is as deluded enough to make the claim that we deserve a particular lot of land simply on the basis of maybe by a shot in the dark, some sort of claim, or sorry, some sort of genetic ties to previous populations in the Levantine area. However, this will be further debunked as we go into our further analysis with data. And I don't even need the rest of the time, to be honest. We can go ahead and move forward for the cross-examination after Jihadist's opening statement.
Okay, perfect. And that's exactly 2 minutes. So Jihadist, if you want to take your 2 minutes as well, since he doesn't have his partner to counter anyway. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to point out that I find it extremely egregious that the opponent, Elijah, who is not in attendance, unfortunately trapped opponent Kamikaze into saying this argument, which is a little bit faulty. Namely, so that by the understanding of biblical terminology, in which Elijah, who is supposed to be part of the debate, would simply put that the Jews themselves are not indigenous to the land. They were from Egypt, and they went and they fought the Canaanites. As a matter of fact, if I recall correctly, and historically proven, they were slaughtered and genocided for the Jews to settle in that area of the land. In what way are they indigenous? They're not indigenous. They're all from Egypt. And when it comes to the later terms in which they claim that the Palestinians are not indigenous to the land, it's egregious. I've posted a study in the Palestine v. Israel channel, which directly denotes two factors. The first factor that it denotes is that, simply put, that the Palestinians are descendants of the Canaanites, and the Jews that were actually present on the land are closer to the Canaanites. None of the Jews that are currently present in Israel, by vast majority, are actually related to any of these groups. They all come from European backgrounds. If you go ask a Jew about tragedies that have occurred to their people, and you ask them where have they occurred, not a single one would ever mention Israel or Palestine or the Levant or anywhere closely related to that location. The Holocaust did not take place in Israel; it took place in Germany. The eradication of Jews in Ukraine did not take place in Israel; it took place in Ukraine. The eradication of Jews in Eastern Europe did not take place in Israel; it took place in Europe. And it took place in Russia. So I find it very egregious that the Jews would tend to claim that the Palestinians are not indigenous to the land when they themselves admit in their own scripture and in accordance with their own comprehensions and in accordance with their own historians that they are not indigenous to the land. Furthermore, proven by geneticists from a neutral side that that the Jews are not native to the land, and this is even furthermore complicated by the understanding of modern terminology in terms of their so-called oppression. Because when we investigate the areas of where they were oppressed, none of them would manage to reroute themselves back to the Middle East. All of them are from Europe. There's even a study on this, and I will be posting it momentarily, in which the majority of Jews who are living in Palestine or living in modern-day Jerusalem do not even have the genetic prerequisites of the average Palestinian. They are more likely to suffer from the effects of the sun and suffering from things such as skin cancer, which is a trait that is not very common among Semites.
Okay, perfect. We're gonna have a 20-minute cross-examination, and Kamikaze can start that out.
Yeah, no worries. So to clarify, I have done no preparation on this specific topic. This was Elijah's baby, this specific topic. In my opinion, I don't think this is a particularly important question. But again, it's very unfortunate that he wasn't here. I hope there's a very good reason he isn't. Yeah, I mean, we can discuss this if you want. If you have any specific questions, I can try and answer them. But again, this isn't my area of expertise.
Yeah, so I mean, Yazan and Jihadist, if you want to ask them a few questions, you guys can go ahead and do so.
Well, yeah, I do have a question. If you were yourself were not prepared for this, would you then be fine with conceding this point towards us? Since clearly, to me, it seems not only egregious, but not backed up by facts at all, and I haven't seen a single source from your side.
Yeah. So one of the issues is obviously I'm just not in a position to concede the point. It's in terms of, like, I'm obviously willing to say, like, I'm not willing to argue it. But unfortunately, the reality is I just don't know enough to concede one way or the other.
Okay, well, we could go based off evidence if you are let's assume that then, because it's not your argument, you maintain some form of neutral
Well,
stance on the topic since you don't know much about it. Would you, if you would be just so kind to take a look at the chat that we posted, would you mind explaining to me why the average quote unquote indigenous Jew of the land, i.e., the Israeli citizens of today, have more risk of skin cancer than they do to the Arabs who are indigenous to the land? Wouldn't that entail some form of genetic factor in which they are not actually from the land?
not necessarily, no. Genetics is obviously a complicated topic.
I hate to
Again,
butt
not my
in.
area of expertise.
I hate to butt in, but I'd
Sorry,
like to
Chimpy?
say that I think this point should be argued by the person who presented it, and I don't think we should be taking any claim to their argument or even
Well,
conceding
that's
the
fine.
point
That's why I
for them
said.
because they're not here to
Mm.
debate it. And I think we should kind of move on from that point if this is going to be the case. I don't think we should be arguing other people's arguments
Well,
if we don't know what they
well,
were
in order,
arguing.
well,
You know?
with all due respect, right? It isn't a fault of ours. So we came
Oh,
prepared with
obviously not.
our stasises, and so what we're saying is we intend on proving this point, regardless of the presence of Elijah or not. What I'm saying is you are more than welcome to defend his entailed positions as to whether you want to or you do not want to. But we will take our time with the time that we have been allotted to truly do explain why Elijah's point just simply wouldn't hold up with the explanation of science, studies, peer-reviewed academic journals, and the understanding of the Jews themselves in accordance with their own historicity.
I'm certainly willing to ask you questions. I'm sure that you can. Yeah. Sorry. With regards to like genetics and this sort of stuff, my understanding, again, this is a fledgling understanding, is that when it comes to like focusing down specifically where each individual person comes from, genetic factors aren't going to be as specific as what you're trying to entail here. Obviously, it is the case that Arabs come from the Middle East for the most part. This is obviously the case. But narrowing it down to specifically like the areas that constituted like British Mandate Palestine, I think this might be pretty difficult to do, just with genetics specifically.
I mean, we do
Oh,
have an enormous amount of studies that do show
right.
the Palestinian side as far as indigeneity relating to DNA that correlates with Canaanite populations of the Bronze Age and even other Levantian ethnicities and groups that have existed in the land for millennia. I would like to ask you both: do you believe that it is justified? I know you guys were more interested in the legality aspect, but do you believe it's justified for a people's, particularly of a race or ethno group, to claim a land on the basis of a potential, residing of the land in the past? Just for example, like the equivalent example would be me saying, I'm Arab, right? Therefore, I deserve, and I'm entitled to, along with all my compatriots, a specific lot of land, let's say in Yemen or maybe even Jordan. Because essentially that's the Zionist claim, and at least that's the one that's parroted most popularly today, that the whole reason as to why this particular land was chosen on the backs of Palestinians is simply on the basis of race and alleged historicity, and then potentially indigeneity. Do you believe that's actually justified?
Obviously, so to answer your question, I don't think that is a really good reason to settle a specific area. I have no delusions with regards to like the history of like Zionism, the history of the Israeli government, and I obviously don't support every single move has ever happened, but it is a historical fact that the justification given by the Zionist movement, at least in part, is the indigeneity argument. I just think that with regards to what I'm interested in, specifically international law, this obviously falls flat.
All right. So with that,
And
with that being
again,
said,
as I tried to sort of make clear in my opening statement, the important thing here is getting to a situation where we actually manage to have like a peaceful solution, where the people who are in a situation now actually manage to live in such a way where everyone's happy.
I wholeheartedly disagree because I've never seen a case in which a colonialist group and resistance movement are somehow forced into making peace with each other and living amongst each other. It seems to me that it's very, very hypocritical for one to point at areas such as South Africa and say, nope, they're allowed to govern themselves. You look at Hong Kong and say, nope, they're allowed to govern themselves. and you look at all these scramble for Africa countries, and you go, well, nope, they're allowed to govern themselves. But when it comes to the case of Palestine, nada. We'll forget the science, we'll throw the studies out the window, we'll throw the genealogy out the window, we'll throw the genetic studies out the window, we'll throw the academic papers out the window, we'll throw any form of credible claim against us outside of the window, and just proclaim that somehow we do not have an argument nor we're willing to defend it. And what I'm going to assume, and I know it might be hasty of me, but I genuinely do believe this, and I am going to say it, I genuinely believe that Elijah didn't show up because he knew he wouldn't be able to defend the very first point. And so he stuck it on you guys. And so what I'm saying is just simply put the following. If we do take a look at their own historicity, you would agree with me that the Jews themselves went and they destroyed the Canaanites. Would you concede to this? Yes or no?
No, I have no idea. That is not something I'm aware of. You can obviously make the claim, but you don't have anyone here who's like capable of pushing back on you. And so I would be wary as an audience member of just accepting wholesale anything given that's obviously not able to be pushed back on. Furthermore, I don't appreciate the statement about Elijah. I have no idea why Elijah is here, but I'm confident that the reason that he's not here is probably a good one.
Okay. Is Elijah not a Jew? Yes or no?
Elijah is Jewish.
Okay. In Deuteronomy, yeah, were the Jews not ordered by God to expel the Canaanites? Yes or no, and attack them and slaughter their children and slaughter their animals?
I'm unsure.
You are unsure? Okay,
I'm unsure.
My opponent seems extremely unprepared on this topic, but the answer would be yes. As a matter of fact, it specifically says, "Let no one be spared." Even donkeys were killed, and even camels were killed. Livestock that did absolutely nothing. They still ended up getting killed, right? And so my question would be, is that if the Jews were not there in the first place, what gives them right over the land? As far as I'm concerned, they were not indigenous. They came there, caused a massive genocide, and then said the land was theirs. Right? And it's very common of these colonialist cases to proclaim that somehow that they maintain the right to live on the land, just like the Americans did with the Native Americans. They came, they colonialized the land, killed a bunch of Native Americans, and now it's painted as, it sucks to suck, but we can't really make an argument because
the unfortunate case of the
we
matter,
need to live here happy together. And what we're saying is no, there needs to be some form of capitulation. There needs to be some form of capitulation in which the Israeli apartheid state needs to acknowledge that their own foundation of finding the state is simply erroneous and unfounded. They are not indigenous.
So we're obviously going to disagree on the point as to whether or not it is an apartheid state. But just to be very, very clear, the fact of the matter is that colonial states existed, and it is the case that there are people who live, specifically I'm thinking about the Aboriginals in Australia, and obviously the Native Americans who live in nations that were founded on colonialist ideas. I don't think that these people have a right to a state, like an independent state. I don't think this is necessarily mimicked in the case of Israel Palestine. I think in terms of solutions, if I was talking to things that I'm partial to, something very similar to a 1967 border would be appropriate. It's just a question of how we get there. I think when it comes down to it, at least the three specific points that I was talking about in my opening statement are incredibly important positions of fact to discuss, because at the end of the day, allegations that are not in line with international law interrupt and intervene in getting to a reasonable solution.
Kamikaze, I want to ask you real quick. On what accords do you believe the 1967 borders are justified, being that Palestinians had owned over 66% of the entirety of the land in 45 alone? Right, let's get to 47 and 48 borders first before we skip to 67, right? 67 is actually garbage. The only reason we're advocating for it is because it seems to be the most attainable, and what Hamas advocates for today.
That would be my argument. My argument would be something along the lines. I'm not particularly interested in justice. I think justice is an unattainable thing in this situation. When it comes down to it, the most appropriate solution seems to be something around the 1967 borders. It seems that the international community agrees with this. 1967 borders with land swaps seems to be the primary push and focus. And I think that's probably around correct in terms of a sustainable, ongoing solution that will end up better for everyone than obviously ongoing conflict.
No, it wouldn't. Would you deny that the apartheid state in South Africa was not peacefully derelicted and moved away without the harm of the quote unquote white people that were colonializing the the native indigenous people in South Africa? Yes, the answer would
So
always be
when it
yes.
comes down
So
to,
with that being said,
oh yeah, it wasn't a question. Okay.
the answer would always be yes. And what I'm saying is just simply put, and it was a genuine question. But if you were gonna say no, I would just think that extremely egregious, because essentially you'd be saying just
So
white supremacy is
yeah.
somehow
So
equivalent,
unfortunately the
somehow could reach
comparison
peace
between
with
South
a resistant
Africa
group.
and
But
and we will be, I'm sure, touching this on
so
later on
just
in the
one moment,
debate. The comparison
just
between South
just
Africa and
nope, it's not.
Israel in this
Just one
respect with
moment.
regard to apartheid is
No,
not
it's not.
a accurate
Yeah,
comparison.
it is 100% an accurate
It is
comparison,
not an
because
accurate comparison. No, it is
the
not.
UN has provided, yes it is, and I'll explain to it. Right, if you were ignorant of the history, I'd appreciate if you
But if you
remain
want to have this
consistent and
discussion,
say
we
you
can
don't
wait until we actually deal with it in
you
the
don't.
following question.
May I finish, please? Thanks. Right. Look, you not being able to answer the question is not an excuse for you to interrupt the conversation. So, what I'm telling you is something very simple. I'm saying it is 100% the same thing, because the UN provided the same value sets as this in terms of the apartheid state. You think South Africa wasn't offered a two-state solution? They did offer a two-state solution, right? But it all broke down when they proceeded to jail Nelson Mandela for around 23 years, and the ANC proceeded to riot. The ANC committed the same attacks that Hamas did. They went and bombed government buildings. They went and bombed judiciary buildings. They went and bombed the parliament. Right? But on one case, you would sit there with pom-poms cheering Nelson Mandela, but in this case, you take off the pom-poms and call Hamas terrorists.
But I don't cheer any violations of international law. That
Well,
is
do you
not
call
something
Nelson
that I
Mandela a
share.
terrorist?
I'm unaware. I think Nelson Mandela, I believe, was a terrorist. Yes. He specifically broke
Okay.
international law, and I don't support the breaking of international law. That being said, the apartheid regime was particularly in South Africa was particularly egregious, and is the bedrock of the apartheid conventions that we know today. But this was a very specific implemented system of racial discrimination that was built on like very clear policy lines. This is incredibly dissimilar to what is happening in the British Mandate Palestine region. Is incredibly dissimilar, considering the fact that this is an ongoing conflict and there are obviously occupied territories. When it comes down to treatment of peoples in the land, it's not discrimination on the basis of race. Obviously, 20% or around abouts of Israeli citizens are Arabs. These people are treated effectively the same in terms of the law to other Israelis. When
Okay,
it
so
comes down to it, you need to understand that in occupied territories there is a separate set of international standards that are applied.
yeah,
Why are you
just so
dismissing
we're
the Dutch?
real quick,
I just
Jihadist,
wanted to say, why?
just
Oh yeah, go
Hmm.
ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say 'cause we are gonna get into the meat of this in the apartheid
Yeah.
section. So I think it would be best to leave it for the apartheid section. We
There's
probably don't
5
want to use
minutes
up
left,
all
by the way.
36 minutes of this section. Yeah, if there's 5 minutes left, then I think we'll leave the rest of it to the apartheid section. We'll get into the indigeneity aspect on one last thing, which is just to pick off where Jihadist left off on the according to what Elijah and Orthodox Jews believe. Kamikaze, if we prove to you, for example, just with a simple few verses and like the common Orthodox belief, that the Jews do accept, as far as the religious ones, accept that their introduction to the land and its origin is literally based on like a ethnic cleansing genocidal event known as the wiping out of the Canaanites. Would you not at least admit that, with that being said, the Orthodox Jews who are taking this position of Zionism or claiming lack of indigeneity to the Palestinians, or that they themselves are indigenous, are making a completely contradictory claim? Because, again, they themselves are not the originators of the land. They came in on the basis of, literally, according to their own books, a means of ethnic cleansing and genocide. And then they established, and over the course of almost 2,500 to 3,000 years now, the ethnicities have completely been swapped out over and over again with different ruling powers. Then we reintroduced them in the 7th century, by the way, live side by side for 1,400 years while they're having their diaspora. They come back in the late 19th century, 20th century with Elias and all this whole propagandist movement that we deserve this because we are indigenous. So, I mean, I would at least expect you, Kamikaze, to say, look, I'm not religious, but if that is the perspective of the Orthodox Jewish belief, then this clearly is, hypocritical in nature, to claim that they have indigeneity at all.
I do think it would be inappropriate. I'm not obviously not religiously Jewish, and I don't have expertise in the area. When it comes down to it, this would be like asking someone who has no background in mathematics, for example, to have a look at a specific formula and ascertain whether or not this proves or does not prove, say that P equals MP or something like this. I just don't have the background to discuss this, to accept
Does your
or reject the argument.
does your partner Zionist Chimpy, who has been quiet as a mouse as of the last 30 minutes, want to say anything on the matter? Because I mean, we'd expect some material to end this section off. Zionist Chimpy, do you have anything to say as far as indigeneity goes, or are we just going to go ahead and skip past this? You guys can check
No,
the
to
VC
be
text,
quite,
by the way, with the overwhelming data that we've posted on genetic reviews and studies regarding the Palestinian
Yeah,
Arabs.
I had about roughly 2 minutes to prep for this, so I'm not well read exactly deep into exactly what questions
No
I'd be
problem.
engaging in. So
No problem.
in
Zionist,
regards to this one, I'm gonna have to. I'm not
are
gonna
you
have an opinion on
you're
it.
Jewish, right?
Yes, of course. Yes.
Okay, you've read into the Old Testament, right?
Brother. Yes.
In the Torah.
Yes.
Can you tell me what Joshua did? What's Joshua most notable for?
Oh man. Okay. Oh man, I'm not prepared for this shit. Okay, give me a second.
This is something you're taught from an
I'll help
early
you
age,
out.
Zionist Chimpy.
Yeah, I'll help you out.
Alright.
Joshua is known for ransacking the Canaanites when God ordained him to attack them. Correct? And if I recall correctly, he said, "Spare no animals, spare no man, spare no woman, because they all disobeyed God." Right? Would you say that the Canaanites were indigenous to the land then?
Man, I going right off of that, I can't, brother. I don't know.
Yeah, so I mean,
That's
I
okay.
can give you my understanding of what happened around that area period
Yeah.
of time.
Kamikaze, I was talking to Zionist, please.
No,
Sure,
he's okay.
he
He's
said
okay
that he
talking
wasn't
for
sure
it.
as well.
I'm unsure.
My understanding is that at the very least, the Jewish peoples of this specific time were also descended from the Canaanite peoples. To make them separate seems to be incorrect in my understanding, but again, I'm not 100% sure. It's incredibly difficult, unfortunately, to defend this point when, again, Elijah was the one who was really keen on this specific point, really pushed it through, and was the one who was doing it. So.
Right. So then why did you feel the need to list it out as an argument if you're not willing to defend it out of ignorance?
To be clear, I didn't list it out as an argument. I did kind of expect Elijah to come in last minute. I was going to send a message to say, hey, I'm not sure if we want to actually take this first thing, but I'm willing to let you guys talk about what you guys believe on this specific topic, and I think we've done that.
Yeah.
No problem. We'd highly recommend everybody to check the VC texts.
Right.
We've posted a plethora of evidence regarding the DNA.
Yeah,
Right,
we're
so
done with this
yeah,
section though. For
this
now.
this section
Sure.
we'll just end it off on a note because
Yeah.
clearly the opposition is not ready for the debate
Yeah.
despite listing it at the beginning,
Oh.
and as well as them not having any preparatory evidence. But everyone is more than welcome to check Palestine via Israel
Yeah.
text chat, in which we posted all of the
Yes.
evidence to prove indigenous.
It's
The
because the person who
indigeneity
made
of
the
the
point for it
of
is not
the
here.
of the Palestinians to the land as compared to the Jews, which I'm surprised because, well, my opponent being a Jew does not even know his own scripture.
Right.
Okay, so we're just gonna move on from
just-
here. We're gonna go to the Yazan and Jihadist positive claim. Israel was founded upon ethnic cleansing and has been actively engaging in it ever since. So we're gonna do 4 minutes from Yazan whenever you're ready.
All right. In this section, we'll be making the positive claim that Israel was founded upon ethnic cleansing and has been actively engaging in it since. The foundations of this treacherous regime can be traced back to the late 19th century to early 20th century. I should put it up here. Following the proposals and propaganda fathered by Theodor Herzl. Herzl was a secular Jew that had found a way to weaponize Judaism as well as the Jewish diaspora in order to build an ethnocentric based state that would secure the goals and interests of himself, along with many Jews around the world. In order to secure the success of the Zionist movement in Palestine, the indigenous population would have to be addressed, i.e. the Palestinian Arabs. The Palestinian Arabs were already familiar with the experience of living side by side with the Jewish Palestinians. And yes, they did identify as Palestinians at the time. Palestinian does not necessitate an ethnic group, rather a title to a people who hail from a specific from the specific land of Palestine. This is obviously due to the presence of Jews being re-established in the 7th century upon the conquest of Jerusalem, where Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu reintroduced the Jews into the land upon the surrender of the land from the Cardinal Sophronius. Arab Muslim leadership in particular was already a safe haven for Jews throughout the centuries. Of course, this did not matter as the goals of Zionism were now priority for many parties abroad. Despite this, despite the Palestinian innocence when it came to Jewish persecution, the West favored the idea of Zionism as not only would it compensate the Jews for the long-standing domestic issues they had with them, also drive the Jewish population out of their own lands and kind. Furthermore, the West would have a new ally in a new land of interest, i.e. the Middle East. Many also had pseudo-religious motivation for the creation of this new Jewish state. Regardless of the motivation, the Palestinian Arabs would need to suffer the cost of creating such a state, despite already owning the majority of the land itself. From policies set in place by the earliest Zionist organizations, to breaking of promises by the British Mandate, to the terrorization enacted by the Haganah, the Lehigh, and the Urgun, to the massacres and policies of ethnic cleansing in the 1947 era, to the Nakba, to the illegal settler colonial movement in the occupied territories taking place till today, the Palestinians know all too well what the meaning of ethnic cleansing is. This terrorist bastard state, as I will call it, was founded as a unique settler colonial project and continues to act in the same manner as it always has, replacing a native people with one that is less indigenous and terrorizing the population to break away from their homes. Probably have more time. Go ahead, though.
Okay, Jihadist, you have 4 minutes whenever you're ready.
Yep. Okay, so in order to get to the heart of the matter as to how Israel was founded to be an apartheid state, straight from the conception all the way down until today, we'll have to take a look at the historical and political context. A thing in which my opponents, time and time again, repeat that they are not well informed on the historicity of the same state that they are defending. Well, Israel was first established in 1948, following the United Nations partition plan, which intended to create a separate Jewish and Arab states in the territory then known as Palestine, underneath the brokering of the British Mandate, in which the British Mandate has explicitly said that the Jews would be living under Palestinian protection. Following the declaration of the State of Israel, the Irgun and the Lehigh broke out a war against its Arab neighbors. During this period and its aftermath, significant amounts of oppression, genocide, and acts of crimes against humanity has been committed by these specific groups, in which even today the State of Israel considers them a terroristic group, despite having statues resembling their figures and statues resembling their logos, such as the logo of the Lehigh salute, which is a fascistic salute that was inspired by Hitler's Nazi salute. This event was specifically called the Nakba by the Palestinians, to signify the amount of Palestinians that were displaced from their homes by the Irgun and by the Lehigh. When it comes to them establishing laws that support their apartheid state and their apartheid regime, is that since its establishment, they have implemented various laws that critics unanimously argue that institutionalizing segregation and discrimination against the Palestinians in Gaza is necessary for quote-unquote their freedom and their protection. Example of such laws include those pertaining to land ownership and citizenship. For example, the law of return that was established in 1950 grants Jews worldwide the right to return to Israel and to gain citizenship. But no such right is extended to the Palestinians that were displaced in 1948 in any of the genocides, village attacks, or the war that has broke out. Neither was it presented to the Palestinians in 1967. But if a Jew in Turkey, or a Jew in Germany, or a Jew in Poland, or a Jew in Ukraine has a nail that even enters his toe, it's time for him to pack up and go to Israel. Because God forbid he gets hurt. The land and we'll take a look now at the land and property laws. Israeli laws regarding land and property have been contentious. For example, the absentee property law in 1950, which was defined as anyone who had left his property to go to an Arab state during the Arab-Israeli War is an absentee, and the property of the absentees could then be appropriated by the state. Now, the issue is that when you do not have enough land to appropriate these absentees, what ends up happening? They turn them into colonizers, or as they like to call them, settlers. Obviously, as we all know, settlers do not come with guns. Settlers come with flags and food for themselves, which they did not. They came with guns and kicked the Palestinians out, in which even the individual on my profile picture, who is a prolific writer by the name of Kanafani, Ghassan Kanafani, was displaced from his own home and had to write about it. And when he was displaced, there was no justice for him, there was no right of land for him, there was no right of absentee for him, nada. As a matter of fact, they just said, oh, he's anti-Semitic. Why? Because he called for the dissolution of the Zionist Nazi state for discriminating against him as an Arab. Post 1967, Israel began establishing settlements in the occupied territories, namely the West Bank, East Jerusalem, Gaza Strip, and the Golan Heights, which are illegal under international law, because nowhere in the British Mandate does it say they have right to that land. Nowhere in the UN Mandate does it say they have the right to that land. Not a single international law says they have a right to these lands, including the Golan Heights. The presence of these settlements and the policies governing them, including roads, infrastructure, that cater exclusively to the settler population, not the indigenous, as proven previously in the conversation, Palestinians, is pointed example as to how an apartheid separation and control works. And this 100% fall under the definition of the International Convention on the Suppression and Punishment of the Crime of Apartheid, established in 1976, which defines an apartheid state or apartheid in general as an inhuman act committed for the purpose of establishing and maintaining domination of one specific group over another racial group or ethnic group or systematic group by oppressing them using laws.
Okay. I'm assuming that was the end of your statement.
Yep.
So, interestingly, at the final part of the statement, you obviously went into apartheid. You misquoted the definition for apartheid there. Specifically, the definition for apartheid talks. It's specifically racial groups. It's not just groups. As you specifically says, it never says ethnical groups. It never says anything like that. The Apartheid Convention specifically says racial groups. We need to be very, very clear on our definitions in international law. I agree with you. The occupations in occupied territories specifically are illegal under international law. But this does not make ethnic cleansing or apartheid. Again, it is important to keep in mind what the specific definitions are with regards to international law. When it comes to the definition of ethnic cleansing, you will find this in, I believe it's S25274. Specifically, it requires grave breaches and violations of international humanitarian law. Whilst breaches of international law occurred during the settling of Israel, obviously, it is not the case that ethnic cleansing is ongoing. As a matter of fact, the current conflict that is occurring does not constitute ethnic cleansing.
Okay, you said that they do not constitute ethnic cleansing. Could you explain the genocides on the village that was done by the Lehigh and the Aragon?
This would have been a very long time ago. My specific claim is that ethnic cleansing is not ongoing. It may well be the case that ethnic cleansing occurred early on in this conflict by specific people. Obviously, before the creation of the IDF, when we're talking about a whole bunch of like different groups who are all acting like semi-autonomously, there's all sorts of stuff that happened. I'm not entirely sure, and I'm not entirely confident to say that it was ethnic cleansing, nor am I confident to say that it wasn't. That being said, the specific question that we were asked to consider today was twofold. Specifically, that it was founded on ethnic cleansing and continues to participate in ethnic cleansing. Ethnic cleansing specifically requires the same dolus specialis that a genocide would, and you would have to, as someone making a positive claim, demonstrate that that dolus specialis exists.
Okay, I did
In
have
regards
one more.
to,
I did have just one more question. You stated earlier, if I recall correctly, in the conversation, you can look through the transcript of the recording. You stated that Mandela is a terrorist for violating international law. Yet you right now admitted that Israel has violated international law by these settlements, which are entirely illegal. Would you then concede
I did not say.
I did not. They are terrorists.
Okay, to be very clear, it may be the case that I misspoke. In the same way that so someone who has committed terrorism is a terrorist. I'm not entirely comfortable with calling any group without the explicit goal of terrorism to be a like terrorist. So the same would go even potentially for Hamas in this scenario.
no problem. So just so we're not kind of pouring in from apartheid to ethnic cleansing here, you said, Kamikaze, that ethnic cleansing
Well, time is up. We're gonna move on to
It's
cross
not.
exam now, so you can ask these right now. In the
We've sort of moved on naturally to the
you guys moved on.
cross-examination, if that's
We
okay.
haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah, so don't,
No
yeah,
problem.
that was the counter, but now it's the cross exam. So now 20 minutes, so you can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry,
No
just
problem.
continue.
No problem. So, according to the founders of the state itself, Kamikaze, um, we have numerous quotations here from former prime ministers of this whole state that would definitely give a clear-cut basis for ethnic cleansing itself. We have, for example, the quotations from David Ben-Gurion, who himself was a terrorist in the early days, quoting the following through his diaries and various documents. If I were an Arab leader, I would never sign an agreement with Israel. It is normal. We have taken their country. It is true God promised it to us, but how could that interest them? Our God is not theirs. There has been anti Semitism, the Nazis, Hitler, Auschwitz, but that was their fault. They see but one thing: we have come and we have stolen their country. Why would they accept that? And we have a multiplicity that I'd love to just continue giving. But I would like to ask you, what do you define ethnic cleansing as? Because if you cannot concede
So
that has taken place in the past, we can never get anywhere with the present.
So I would specifically point to, and I'm sure you're familiar with it, the definitions provided in S25274. And the subsequent document, which I don't have the number written down here, that specifically references 25274. So this would be intentional, and the word is intentional removal of a specific ethnic group from land. Again, and via obviously violations of international law. The Sorry, give me a second. So, with regards to statements made by previous prime ministers, previous statesmen, etc., I don't see how this is relevant to ongoing ethnic cleansing as a claim. Again, I am agnostic with regards to the claim as whether or not there was ethnic cleansing, like per se. In, let's say, the end of the British Mandate period, and this region. I'm agnostic on this claim. I'm far more interested in the claim of whether or not an ethnic cleansing is currently ongoing.
Okay, so you are agnostic on the idea that Israel was founded upon ethnic cleansing. We can just go ahead and provide further sources for that. With the actual creation of the state itself, which I'm not sure if you would count as the modern era, Operation or Plan Dalet is literally an ethnic cleansing policy. We have dozens and dozens of massacres that took place throughout this era, as well as the Nakba, obviously. But if you are agnostic on the past and the foundations, which yet again, I'm very disappointed, and we are very disappointed that you guys are willing to defend the positive claim in its totality. We can just move forward to the modern day policies that would show proof of intent to ethnically cleanse till today. You conceded that in today in the West Bank there are illegal settlements taking place, but you're somehow saying that they are not intentional. With regards to the 750,000 illegal settlers in the West Bank, are we going to just sit here and pretend that they're accidental and that they're not based on displacing the Palestinians that actually have deeds to their homes in that land? Or what are we exactly talking about here? I'd like to kind of get an understanding from you regarding the situation in the West Bank today with the illegal settlements and how this is not ethnic cleansing.
So I mean, you're just sort of asserting that it is ethnic cleansing without really demonstrating it. Again, the specific claim that you're making is with regards to the Israeli state. There are certainly specific Israelis who have the probably almost certainly the specific intent that's required for all sorts of crimes against humanity, etc. But the specific claim is regards to the state itself. Yeah, so I mean, you have to make the positive argument here.
Okay, so in regards to, for example, how the state endorses the illegal settlers in the West Bank, I could cite you multiple laws that actually give incentives for illegal settlements themselves in the West Bank. I can also cite to you video footage and policy through organizations like, for example, Breaking the Silence, where IDF soldiers themselves are not only ordered to, but also are more than happy to help illegal settlers that are incredibly radical and incredibly antagonizing to the Palestinian people, while taking hold of new settlements. Of course, when it comes to making new settlements in the West Bank, most settlers wouldn't be able to do it without some sort of authorization from zoning of the Israeli government. But simply on the basis of the laws that provide incentives for Israelis to go and, for example, make claim to lands in Judea and Samaria or Section C, which is supposed to be in the hands of the PA by now. This is more than sufficient enough evidence to justify the positive claim that ethnic cleansing is taking place till this day and with intent.
No. So with regards to the actual methods used, these are important when it comes to the definition of ethnic cleansing. It's the specific use of, I believe it's terror, that would be important here, terror and violence. When it comes down to specifically settlements in the West Bank, obviously violations of international law, not technically ethnic cleansing. One of the important things, again, with regards to this conversation, is being really specific with the words used. When it comes down to it, it's not ethnic cleansing. It doesn't use the means of ethnic cleansing that we saw all throughout, like fighting in Europe, that obviously like settled the specific name ethnic cleansing. We don't see any of these things in the specific areas that we're talking about. This is just not the case.
Okay. So in regards to the population of Israel themselves, or the Israelis, I should say, in the West Bank,
Mm-hmm.
we have a plethora of documented footage of them using terrorist-like actions with weapons that are obviously given by the state and the Israeli army force itself. You would just simply say that the Israeli civilians themselves may be the ones enacting ethnic
Well,
cleansing, but not the
one of
government?
one of the things that excludes this from ethnic cleansing is specifically the fact that Israeli Arabs are allowed to live within Israel. One of the important things to recognize is that there are many people in Israel who identify specifically as Palestinian who are given full rights as citizens of Israel. When it comes down to it, we can agree again that settlements in occupied territories are indeed against international law, but that does not necessarily constitute ethnic cleansing. Ethnic cleansing is a very specific term, and you must make the argument with reference to this definition as to what's actually happening.
Okay. As defined by the EU here, ethnic cleansing entails rendering an area ethnically homogeneous by using force or intimidation to remove from a given area persons of another ethnic or religious group, which is contrary to international law. And with regards to the West Bank, we do have actively till today, and especially since October 7th, intimidation and force being used by the Israeli settlers in the West Bank to push people literally out of their homes, irrespective of any law or the deeds that the Palestinians own to their homes. If you want proof that the actual government endorses this and funds and arms these settlers, thereby making it a state act, and we're more than happy to provide that. But for you to keep evading the point that there is an ethnic cleansing taking place, it's just going to do us no good. And on the matter of Arabs living in Israel, this is the common cope that I hear from Zionists. There are about 65 different laws, and this is going to pour back into the apartheid section. There are 65 laws that are in place today, according to the Israeli government, under Israeli basic law, a government that has no constitution, that have a level of segregation, both directly and indirectly, towards Palestinians. I'm actually going to cite them here from an organization, called Adala, which is both a Jewish and Arab organization that takes interest in defending rights of Palestinians. We're going to go ahead and post that in the VC text again. We have from tax break laws to land ownership laws, of course, the law of return. We have property issues. We have a plethora of different things that segregate Arabs in Palestine, not only on a civilian level, but even those who participate in the political parties that are there. Just posted the organization website here, which cites 65 different laws that actually segregate Palestinians directly and indirectly from a multiplicity of categories of life. So, I mean, that's just a silly cope regarding just because you have, sorry, excuse my language, house Negroes in the fields or at home, that somehow necessitates that you are not being racially or motivated against a particular group or ethnically cleansing the general populace.
So you can hide behind allegations of people being house. I'm not going to say that word, but that's just frankly not the case. With regards to representation all across Israeli society, Arab Israelis are obviously represented. it is the case in many countries, and it continues to be the case in Israel, that minorities are discriminated against, but this is not sufficient either for a ethnic cleansing claim nor an apartheid claim. Otherwise, it would be the case that almost every single country is an apartheid state. When it comes down to it, the significant difference in the treatment between people in Israel and people in the occupied territories is the fact that the occupied territories are occupied territories, that there is an ongoing international armed conflict that is occurring in this region.
Give me one moment. I'm just
I
letting the
find it.
other interlocutors.
I just put down my 7-Up bottle. Sorry, I was consuming a soda beverage. Does not fund Israel, by the way. So, where was I? Yes, I find it very egregious that the opponent claims to be agnostic on the very same matters that he is attempting to defend. Look, I asked a very basic
that is
question
not true.
before, and I feel like it still has not been answered. And that tends to provide as how my opponent is being very disingenuous when it comes to approaching the question as to whether or not hundreds and thousands of Palestinians are dying. He goes, "Oh, well, I think this is bad and I think that is bad." But then he proceeds to slap on labels on Mandela, but refuses to slap on labels on his beloved Israel. Now, my question is just simply put as follows: What do you make of the genocide that has occurred in the villages under the orders of the Lehi, which are praised and worshipped by individuals like Benjamin Netanyahu? Why are the Israelis protesting at the Israeli government buildings over these actions and over the praisals of the Lehi within the Knesset and the Israeli parliament? I still did not get an answer to this, other than I'm not sure. I'm agnostic. I need an actual response. Otherwise, I'm not going to be very fruitful in terms of engaging in the conversation if I have nothing to reply to.
So you misrepresented things that I've said previously, so I'm going to deal with those very specific things. With regards to Mandela, the reason why I'm willing to call Mandela a terrorist and not Israel a terrorist is on the basis that Israel is a state and Mandela is a person. When it comes down to it, if you are a person who does the war crime of terrorism, you are a terrorist. But that does not necessarily speak to the organizations or states you're a part of. With regards to...
I'm sorry, I just want to ask you on that specific statement. You said one individual does not quantify for the state. Would you say ISIS then is a group, is not a terrorist, because it's only certain individuals from ISIS that commit the terror?
I clarified earlier specifically if the intent of the organization is the propagation of terrorism specifically.
That's the intent of Israel.
Then you are a terrorist, but that is not the intent of Israel.
That's the intent of Israel. What is the Lehi Charter?
That is obviously not the case.
Okay, well, let's take a look at the
Likud
Lehi Charter
is a
together,
specific group inside of the Israeli government.
Yes.
This is not the Israeli government itself. I absolutely condemn the charter, their charter. I don't appreciate their charter at all. I think that what they say is vile. It does not represent the position of Israel itself.
Can you explain why Abraham Stern is then praised as a war hero by modern day Israel?
By some Israelis, yes, obviously.
No, not by some Israelis.
Many.
You did not hear what I said. I'll repeat it.
By
the current seated Israeli government.
You said.
What?
You specifically. Sorry, Chimpy.
There are statues. There are statues of Abraham Stern scattered all over Israel. Can you explain to me why is Israel then proceeding to build government-funded statues and praisals of him in public if he is considered a condemnable figure? You're defending a side that doesn't want to defend you. Is my problem.
This isn't relevant to the conversation. It's clearly not.
Relevant.
No, it absolutely isn't relevant to the conversation.
It absolutely is relevant. I'll explain why.
Is whether or not ethnic cleansing is occurring, not whether or not there are people who
are you denying the Lehi engaged in
condemnable.
Okay. Do you deny that let's show you that it's actually very, very, very relevant to the topic, right? And you just simply don't want to defend it because you know it's indefensible. It's a very straightforward question. It's literally a two-part question, and this will show whether my question is relevant or not. Do you deny that the Lehi committed genocide?
I don't believe that the Lehi committed genocide. No, I'm sure that individuals.
So can you explain the slaughter?
I believe that individuals inside of that group committed genocidal acts. Potentially specific individuals with Dolus Specialis itself. but I do not believe that that group specifically committed genocide.
Okay, so can you explain to me why the current Israeli government considers them a terrorist organization?
Wait, you can be a terrorist organization without committing genocide.
Okay,
That's a
so
non
if you're
sequitur.
no, the reason why I bring that point is because they were called terrorists because of their genocidal acts in villages, like the slaughters that they have occurred in the villages. Do you deny
Wait,
that that's
genocidal
genocide?
acts does not constitute genocide. Genocide specifically requires both act and dolus specialis, the specific intent.
Okay, do you deny that Deir Yassin massacre happened? Yes or no? It's a straightforward question.
People died at Deir Yassin. There was obviously like
That
deaths
wasn't my
and deaths
question.
that were like clearly war crimes. But
Yeah, I
any
didn't ask
implication
you
that was
whether people died or
specifically,
not.
well, I'm not going to answer in a yes
I said,
no
do you deny that
format.
the Deir Yassin, do you deny that the Deir Yassin was a massacre of innocent Palestinians?
Innocent Palestinians died at Deir Yassin. This is clear.
Okay. Now, listen very closely to the following question. Okay? When a massacre is directly perpetrated for, and I quote, what the Lehi and the Irgun have directly listed to be because they are Arabian villagers, okay? To conclude and to show you as to how it's genocide, can you give me now the definition of genocide?
I can look up the specific definition of genocide if you
I'll
want.
give you it. The definition of genocide is the
Again,
deliberate
specifically,
killing.
hold on, just slow down.
The
Okay,
deliberate
because I
killing.
specifically said there are almost certainly
I'll repeat it.
specific killings that would fall underneath the
Relax.
Genocide Convention.
No,
This is
what I'm
something that I
telling you.
specifically said.
Don't freak
When it
out.
comes down to it, the question
Yeah.
must be, and the
Yeah.
relevant question is not whether or not like pre-Israeli
No,
organizations
there's more than three, but
specifically did genocidal acts. That's not the question.
no, they were
The
approved
question
by the
is
government.
not this. The question is whether or not Israel is participating in an ongoing ethnic cleansing.
They were
That
approved.
is the conversation,
they
and
were
you're trying to
approved.
run away from this because you
They
know
were-
that you
they
can't
were
actually
approved-
prove this.
they were approved
You
by the-
can't
listen.
prove that they are
not putting words in the
doing an ongoing ethnic cleansing, nor are they participating in an ongoing ethnic cleansing. Because ethnic cleansing is a specific term that, frankly, you haven't lived up to in this conversation.
Okay, so I appreciate your remarks in terms of attempting to avoid this discussion in order to try and dissuade the fact that the Lehi did not entail genocide, which is currently what I'm proving. So I'll repeat it. The definition of genocide, which you stopped me from saying because it would utterly destroy your point, was the following: the deliberate killing of a large group of people from a particular ethnic group or particular nation with the aim of destroying that nation or group.
Mhm.
Was the Lehi's actions in Deir Yassin sanctioned by the government? Yes or no?
Unsure. The when it comes
Okay.
to the
If I show you that it was
specific
sanctioned
aim
by the
itself,
government-
so the issue
If
that
I
I was
show
pointing
you-
to was the
if I-
dolus specialis, which
I
you
said-
specifically just read out.
I said yes
was
or
the
no. I didn't
specific
say- I
aim
didn't say talk
to
for-
destroy the national, ethnical, racial, or religious group.
Yep,
Right.
that's crazy. Insane.
Each individual action must be looked at in and of itself.
Okay. So you said you're unsure. Now, if I show you that it was, listen very closely, if I show you that it was sanctioned by the government, would you say that the Israeli government has then approved of genocide? Yes or no?
So I get the feeling that what you're going to provide here is a statement from a individual.
I'm going to give you a statement from the Prime Minister of Israel.
Yes, the Prime
And a
Minister of
policy that was
Israel does
enacted
not
by the
speak.
Knesset in which the Lehi is name dropped.
So
Wait, so the sanction constitutes genocide? Wait, what?
Yeah, the sanctioning of the Lehi, having them go enter into Deir Yassin and massacring a bunch of innocent Palestinians absolutely constitutes a genocide. What would you call a massacre of a large group of people? What would you call that, Zionist Chimpy? What's the name for it? If
What's
you
the
don't believe it's a
intent?
genocide, well, give me the term for it. If I go and I
I'm asking you what
massacre
the
a
intent is.
gigantic group of, yeah, the intent to eradicate,
a
yeah, the
massacre of a
intent, as I told you.
gigantic group of people. Hold on, a massacre of a
intent-
gigantic group of people, regardless
Can
of
I-
how
can I
big
answer
or small
Zionist-
that group of people is,
Kamikaze,
is not
you said,
necessarily in and of itself genocide.
Kamikaze, listen,
specific-
you said it yourself 5 minutes ago. You said you're unsure. So can I speak to Zionist Chimpy? Thanks.
I said I was unsure whether there was a specific directive
so remain
given,
unsure while I'm
by-
talking to Zionist Chimpy.
Hold on.
So
Hold on. I've said I was unsure as regards to whether or not there was a specific directive given by like a person in the Israeli government.
Okay.
When it comes
Yeah.
down to this is a specific question of international law, and the question it is required specifically that not only do you have the genocidal act, but you also have the genocidal intent.
Well, yeah. Do you think intent is ascribed by what is written? So if I'm a government and I say, hey, the reason why
So,
we're attacking these villages is because we want to remove this entire group of population from here, and by that definition, we're going to send these two specific groups, okay, these two specific groups to go in and murder a bunch of innocent Palestinians, and you turn around and you say, "Oh well, you know what? You need actual and understanding and actual intent." I say this is more than enough evidence for intent, and I understand your reluctancy in
it's
refusing
not.
to address the
It's
issue
not, and we
of the
see this,
Deir
and we
Yassin
see this time and
of
time
the Deir Yassin
again when we
massacre.
have a look, and we see this time and time again when we have a look at actual organizations who are looking at these specific cases, specifically the ICJ. The ICJ, in the opinions proffered in the current genocide case ongoing between South Africa and Israel, specifically discusses this topic. All of the statements provided by South Africa have been stated as not being sufficient to demonstrate dolus specialis. The
All right,
statements
that'll
of
be the
an
final point.
individual person does not indicate the intent of a state.
Okay, perfect. We're gonna go to the second positive claim now, Kamikaze. So you'll have 4 minutes for the Hamas committed war crimes beyond taking hostages. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Yep. So war crimes are specific war crimes are a very broad category of things. These are specifically violations of international law with respect to the law of armed conflict. War crimes can specifically span the distance between the unnecessary destruction of civilian infrastructure with no military goal. Two, things much more serious, specifically the unnecessary killing of individuals with no military goal. It is incredibly clear that on October 7th, Hamas, after traveling into Israel, committed war crimes. They not only pilfered stores, but they also unnecessarily killed individuals, even if you consider those individuals to be combatants. This does not justify the killing of people who have already been taken hostage. This is something that happened time and time again on October 7th. We have dash cams footage from all sorts of cameras, specifically showing incidents of people who have been taken hostage, who attempt to escape, and who get shot and killed, even when they have been restrained. These are obvious violations of international law and obvious war crimes.
Okay.
Okay, your friend can go if he wants to, but I know that he doesn't have anything prepared. So if Yazan or Jihadist want to go next.
Yeah,
whenever they're ready.
I'll investigate. I'll investigate this claim. What I am to respond to this is just simply put the following: what is to be expected when, for the past 100 years, you're oppressing a group of people? You attack them, you displace them, you rape them, you commit massive amounts of war crimes with them. You have people like Kamikaze who go around saying, "Hey, I'm agnostic on the Deir Yassin massacre." We have people like Zionist Chimpy who says the Lehigh is not representative of the Israeli government, even though there are statues of the Lehigh in every corner. Treating them like zoo animals, putting them in open air prisons. What is to be expected from a group that's been pushed to the limits? In my eyes, this is no different from what Nelson Mandela and the ANC did. They've tried every peaceful option, it failed. And when every peaceful option fails, there is nothing left but to resort to violence for the preservation of their own lives. Now, let's not pretend that October 7 is somehow a disconnect from what was previously occurring to the Palestinians. As far as I'm concerned, October 7 was merely a reactionary response to what Israel has been doing. Israel is just as guilty as Hamas in this instance. They are responsible for the same individuals dying. Because had Israel been fair and not violated, and were not in accords with what the ICJ has released, which you could see in the Israel versus Palestine chat, guilty of violating international law, this wouldn't have happened, period. And I'm sure anyone with a right understanding of the conflict would admit this publicly. And there are multiple Zionistic figures who have admitted this publicly, and multiple spokespersons who have defended the Israeli side have admitted this, including individuals like Piers Morgan, which I'm sure Kamikaze religiously takes from, considering he copied all his arguments in this debate.
I think it's my turn, but Zionist Chimpy, if you would again, like to contribute to the debate instead of sitting there and breathing air.
Elijah actually has arrived now. So if you
Finally.
don't mind, if we could switch
Jesus.
out, that'd be fantastic. Thank you very much,
Yes.
Yeah, please do.
Chimpy.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, please, finally. Bye, Zionist, Chimpy. I was about to say, this is kind of like a 2v1 because you've
I
been
invited you up
here
to speak,
defending
by
all
the way,
claims.
Elijah.
Yeah, it has been a 2v1.
And the other guy was not helping your side at all. So it's good to have now, you know.
He's put
Two
up his
people
hand
on
in the
each side.
stage. If you want to pop him up.
Yeah, I had him request to speak, so he has to accept it.
Yeah, can someone accept the request?
Let's see. I think I could do it.
Here, I'll just accept it.
I invited him to speak.
He's been invited to speak. All he has to do is
Yeah,
just
yeah.
accept the
Like
invite.
when it's green, that means that it's like on his end now that he has to accept
Yeah.
it.
That's all he has to do.
If you want to do your introduction, Yazan, and then Elijah can maybe do something.
I would prefer him to give his opening statement,
That's
unless
okay
it
as
takes
well.
longer than the next 30 seconds, just so that way, because you guys are going to be doing cross-examination on us this time,
Yep,
so that
yeah,
way
of course.
everything's flowing, yeah. Kamikaze,
those
don't
who are
ever let
interested-
Zionist Chimpy help you again.
For anyone who,
I mean, he
for
was the
anyone
guy
who-
who's about, so.
if there's anyone who is interested in all of the sources that we posted, you could find them in Palestine v. Israel. I would also ask Kamikaze if you have any sources as well on what you're claiming, if you could just post them in the Palestine v. Israel, so everyone can track.
Yeah, no worries.
Everything that we're having.
Look, if you are interested in any of the claims specifically on international law, you can find these fairly easily on. You can either go to the UN website. This will have all of the documents that are being referred to. When I specifically refer to definitions, I do try to state the specific conventions and documents that I am referring to. If you have any specific questions, feel free to message me.
I posted where the UN website
Mhm.
calls Israel in violation of several international humanitarian laws, and the primary result of what has occurred, leading up to
Elijah,
Elijah, you gonna accept the? You can apparently press
Mr.
just
Weinstein.
accept. You should have already been.
He's already up
There
here.
he
He's
is.
already up here.
Oh, here we are.
Hi, Elijah.
All right, there's our Mr. Weinstein, as we're gonna call him. Elijah, you're late. We're gonna put you on the grill for now.
Also, just a
If you
reminder,
can give your
Yazan
opening
and
statement,
Jihadist,
please.
like refrain
Mr.
from any
Weinstein.
like jabs or insults. By the way,
No, I haven't insulted anyone.
yeah, no, just in case.
I'm sure even my opposition Kamikaze can attest to it.
Elijah, you there, mate?
Yes, I'm just got a bad connection.
Elijah, we're on your second positive claim. You want to give your opening statement?
Indigeneity?
No, we
No,
already
that
crossed
was
that,
the first one.
unfortunately.
Okay, obviously that was my plan. Okay, the second positive claim is October 7th. Okay. Well, I'm happy to revisit indigeneity at some point, I'm sure. Okay.
Unfortunately, your partners
I-
did not fare too well on that one.
No.
They were not prepared for it.
Okay, it's a shame. There was the claim on indigeneity is essentially that there's no argument you could make for Arab indigeneity. You can't make for Jewish indigeneity. Literally no argument.
If we have time again, Elijah will cover it. But for now, we're just trying to stay on pace, especially because it's a long debate. So, or stay on track, I should say. So, if you want to get into the second
That's
positive
over.
claim for now,
I'll jump in as and when. Yep, I'll jump in as and when.
Okay.
All right, I think Elijah's just going to waive his introduction. If you just want to do your thing, Yazan.
Okay. With regards to the
Sorry,
claim
I've had
that
not such a good day.
sorry.
Sorry, I've had not such a good day. So
No, that's all right, mate.
No, no worries. With regards to the claim from the other side that excuse me, that Hamas committed war crimes beyond taking hostages on October 7th. Ironically, we are sincere in our support for Hamas, and also with a clear-cut understanding that Hamas did for sure commit war crimes on October 7th, and that does include hostage taking. Ironically, there are some very rare exceptions for hostage taking, like in the example of the Nuremberg trials that took place post World War II. However, we have no issue with seceding or conceding that Hamas committed war crimes beyond taking hostages on October 7th. We will, of course, challenge the allegations of intentful terrorism, rape, mass murder, genocidal intent, so on and so forth. We will like to see what our opponents and interlocutors bring forward as far as allegations regarding the war crimes specifically. However, we have no issue with conceding this point. What I would say, of course, is that what do you expect from a population that is crammed in an area 25 miles long, 5 miles wide, under an illegal besiegement, quite literally pressure cooking conditions, to do in retaliation to a state that we have identified throughout this debate as a terrorist-like regime enacting ethnic cleansing and apartheid on the people for 75 plus years now. I see no appropriate response under humanitarian or international law, apart from a very small slither, in response to a country that does not operate under international or humanitarian law. Play dirty, get played dirty back, and that's just the name of the game. You can't handle the heat, IDF, then get out of the kitchen. I mean, that's all we're going to leave it at for now. I would like to see the allegations against Hamas. This is just the opening statement. I'd like to see the allegations against Hamas regarding the crimes committed. But yeah, we can go ahead and go through them.
So this is a 20-minute cross exam now, I'm assuming.
So
you guys can
sure, it's a bit interesting to start off this question with a concession that obviously our position is correct. It is obviously the case that war crimes were committed. We obviously want to broaden the scope to crimes against humanity specifically, but obviously that's not the topic. The topic is specifically war crimes, and I listed out just a couple, and it seems that you've conceded to those. Yeah, I don't really know where to go from there, actually.
I haven't actually conceded to specifically your allegations, but I have conceded to the general stance that Hamas has committed war crimes. Of course, due to the strictness of international law, there are all too little things a nation like Palestine would be able to do in retaliation towards Israel.
Sure.
But
There
it
are
depends on the
obviously,
allegations.
yeah, there are obviously things that you can do in international armed conflicts that are absolutely acceptable. Obviously, there has been ongoing conflicts in the region. It is absolutely acceptable for an armed group who's a participant in conflicts to do things, but we must do them inside of international law, specifically the targeting of civilians, the killing of hostages, all of these things are violations of international law, given that there is no military advantage or recognized military advantage to doing them. The LOAC is incredibly clear on this. If October 7th had happened and all that had occurred was Hamas had breached the border and then they attacked specifically military points, which they did do, that would have been absolutely acceptable. Absolutely acceptable, but that's just not the case. Hamas breached the border. They murdered civilians. We have countless allegations of rape that are ongoing, that have been subject to UN reports. We have direct evidence in terms of video cameras that have been placed on dashboards, video cameras that Hamas members themselves wore and distributed media from, that show war crimes committed by these people.
Yeah, so unfortunately, with regards to the specific allegations that you have made, I will not concede to those specific points. Regarding intent to murder or terrorize the population that reside within the kibbutz and southern Israel, I actually see contrary evidence from the Israelis themselves that resided in those areas. Due to the fog of war and the circumstances of October 7th, what we know for certain is that with the breaking of the border, one of the failed I should say, portions of the operation that Hamas had led was the controlling of the border they broke over. And as a result, as we see, for example, with the analysis of former ex-Marine Corps officer Scott Riddler, one of the main things that Hamas failed to do was control that border, which caused the overflux of Palestinians as well as other jihadist factions that would pour into the southern Israeli borders, or nations, I should say, or region. And with this, you have clearly a lack of fingers to point at, or at least people to identify when it comes to who's attacking who and who's doing what. We have from Al Qassam's upper echelons, including Muhammad Daif, who has radically changed over the course of years, specific orders to Al Qassam brigades, who are obviously going to be our main area of focus, to not touch non combatants, civilians, women, children, elderly, anybody out of uniform. So we don't have intent established. We have a fog of war with the population that came in on October 7th that definitely did cause some tragedies to take place. And as the last point, we also have clear-cut evidence from the Israeli civilian testimony that not only shows the IDF killed their own population to a high extent, but also that clearly Hamas's intent was not to come in and just destroy everybody. As a matter of fact, there was more of a strategic game at play here. We call it a hostage operation. I will be providing videos as well as
Okay.
articles from Israeli media sources on this. But we can go ahead and give it to Elijah or you or Jihadist.
Okay. So first and foremost, if I come into your house and kidnap your daughter, and then whilst there's police fighting, and they killed my daughter as well as you, that would be my fault and not yours. What happens sometimes is that people don't know who they are and they shoot at people who are attacking them, and they accidentally hit people they're not supposed to hit. That is the fault of the person who happened. That's first and foremost. Secondly, to concede on all the points and then pretend like this is still a debate is ridiculous. Thirdly, to talk about there's no evidence from Hamas itself is just to miss the point. Your argument is that the Palestinian population is so radicalized that they're far more radical than Hamas, and that therefore your actual argument is Palestinians committed war crimes Palestinians from Gaza committed war crimes and acted in ways that were frankly immoral, but nonetheless they're not Hamas, so we can't be done. This is again wrong. But even if you want to look at Hamas, I suppose those people in the porta potties that guy couldn't see. I mean, the green bandana is a bit of a giveaway on the Al Qassam question. But those people in the porta potties that the guy just couldn't see, I suppose they were just the terrorists throughout, or they were acting as part of the Israeli state or something. But
Furthermore,
as it's been,
just to
It's very difficult to hear you, by the way, Elijah.
furthermore,
Yeah.
I just wanted to comment on Elijah's claim.
furthermore, you didn't really respond to the specific allegation that I made, which referred to a specific incident. This incident, Hamas is clearly taking hostages. They're driving back in a what is a large ute, a four-wheel drive, and one of the hostages that they're attempting to take as the truck slows down, takes himself out of the back of the truck. At this point, bound, he tries to run. He is captured, physically brought back by Hamas terrorists, who we know are Hamas terrorists because they took the rest of the remaining people in the back of that truck to Gaza and held them hostage. And then later traded them. We know this, and they summarily executed this man. This is a war crime, very clearly done by Hamas terrorists. There's no denying this. You can't make the excuse this was individuals who just like went over the border randomly. This is clearly not the case.
Okay, again, just to call back into the contradiction here, because I feel like again it's another egregious claim. We already posited. We don't say that these random kidnappings or anything of the sort is justified if they're done on their own will. But that's clearly not the case. You're assuming that the story just started at October 7. What we're telling you is that you're just using buzzwords like the word terrorist, right? But you won't blame Israel for committing the same actions when they send their settlers. I agree with Elijah. If someone walks into your house and rapes your own daughter, he would be the bad guy automatically. But when we brought you the Deir Yassin massacre, you seemingly threw your microphone down and said, oh man, I'm not sure. I'm agnostic on it. Right? And so my response is going to be the same way. I'm going to be agnostic. One second, Elijah, please.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to be agnostic as to whether or not what they did is simply put a war crime based on the basis, like I said, if you push enough group of people into an oppressionable state for years and years and years, it's going to be a pressure cooker. They are going to turn back on you. The same way the ANC did. When Nelson Mandela went against the government, he didn't do so as the first instance, right? He did so after years of oppression, which is funny considering you called him a terrorist just as you called Hamas are terrorists, mainly because they were freedom fighters. Now, the reality is I've never seen a case when there was capitulation between a colonialist case and a resistance movement. If you keep pushing people to their limits, they're eventually going to blow up back on you, right? And so by no means... But what I'm simply pointing out is that it's very hypocritical for Israel to go out and point the finger and say, look at what Hamas did on October 7, and then assume that for the past 80 years, they haven't been doing the same to Gazans and Palestinians the entire time. Now, if Israel's primary concern was the hostages, can you inform me why the topology of Gaza is like a pancake? I find it very egregious that the same people who are claiming Hamas is a terrorist organization for taking hostages is the same group of people bombing the areas where the hostages are. That's why the Israelis are protesting in front of Netanyahu's house, and that's why they're protesting in front of the Israeli Knesset. It's mainly because Israel, despite claiming the hostages, they are the ones that are flattering Gaza.
Israel has multiple goals during the war. Israel has multiple goals during the war. We're discussing war crimes and hostages. We're not discussing the war. If you want to do that, we can do that separately, but that's not what's going on. You can't. We can talk about
regardless.
We can do this all separately. I'm happy to talk about Deir Yassin. There was a book about it that explained all of the 107 deaths at Deir Yassin, recently called The Massacre That Never Was, if you really want to read about it. But when we're talking about war crimes and hostages, pardon?
250, by the way. But we'll get into Deir Yassin.
No. First guesses were 250. Confirmed later 107. Do that later.
Historian cite 250, but we'll get into it later. Let's talk about the allegations. Let's talk about the allegations on October 7th.
Question specifically. So the argument that you are mounting specifically is that if you have moral justification to do a war crime, it is no longer a war crime. This is frankly not correct. As I said in my opening statement, these are questions of fact. They're questions of law. This is what Gigi said specifically. He was saying we have to consider whether or not they were justified. This is the implication that is happening here. It doesn't matter whether or not you are morally justified in whatever you did. A war crime is a war crime. No one on this stage has claimed that no Israeli has committed war crimes. In fact, I claim the opposite. There are Israelis who have committed war crimes. And specifically, I can point to specific instances. We are limited by the fog of war at the moment, but there are instances that we can talk about that we have on camera that we can see are clearly war crimes and have no other potential justification under international law. And I pointed that to those specific
killing innocent Palestinians. And what I'm telling you is that it's egregious for you to point the finger at one side and say, terrorists, but when it comes to Israel doing the same thing, you go, yes, they did war. They indeed did war crimes. They, of course, did war crimes. And then when I tell you, okay, well, condemn them as terrorists.
My specific argument here is speaking about Hamas terrorists.
And so what I'm saying, Kamikaze, please let me finish. And what I'm saying is that there needs to be some form. Elijah, relax. Yeah.
What happened there was
Elijah, 1 second.
Elijah, look, I know, they might, I think this points actually to one of the primary examples that I was about to bring up, is that the reason why the Israeli economy currently is suffering is because even the Israeli individuals are not satisfied with the way that Israel is dealing with the Hamas situation, calling them terrorists. And there has been multiple occasions where the Israeli defense forces have proceeded to lie and slander Hamas in such a fashion just to try and justify their claims against Hamas as being terrorists. Like the very famous example when they pointed at a calendar of Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Wednesday written in Arabic and called it Hamas terrorist war plans. Okay, it's egregious. It's beyond egregious. Now we've posted more than enough evidence.
Okay,
We've posted more than
I
enough
don't know.
evidence
I don't
in
know if you just
Palestine
do
versus Israel
5-minute
text chat.
speeches. I don't know if you just do 5-minute speeches, but eventually you're going to have to let somebody else in. The idea that the Israeli
you would talk once I'm done, right? That's how conversation goes. You get the other opponent to finish a sentence, and then you get to talk.
Yeah, generally you don't get to talk for 5 minutes after interrupting somebody, but there you go.
That's a cross-examination for 30 minutes, but you have more than enough time.
Yeah. There was a 5-minute speech by you. I don't think so. The idea that the Israeli population is.
May I continue my speech without interruption, please, moderation?
Look,
No,
Elijah,
it's a conversation.
Elijah.
It's a cross-examination in which
This
we
is
question
cross-examination. Elijah, 1 second.
Yeah, it's a cross-examination. I need to present the thing that you're going to cross-examine. You can't cross-examine something if you don't let me finish. What are you going to cross-examine?
Let him finish
the rules of cross-examination is that the person doing the cross-examination gets to interrupt, because otherwise all the time gets taken up by you filibustering.
This has nothing to do with filibuster. I'm about to send evidence inside chat and have people send it.
We're not. This isn't filibustering on the question of war crimes, because you're not doing war crimes.
This has nothing to do with filibuster. The reality is you do not want to listen because you know these points are going to be dead shots against your state, against your apartheid state.
I'm perfectly happy to listen. What you do is you put out 15 points and expect me to respond to all of them at once.
No,
you can write them down or something.
Look, Elijah, look, all you have to do is get a piece of paper, get a pen, and write them down. Look, I understand. It's very easy to do that, right? That's what I've been doing the entire time. I could show you my notes. Unless you're going to call them Hamas terrorist war plans, because I've written them in Arabic.
No, I got my Arabic translation madrasa in Saudi Arabia.
Look, Elijah, now at this point, we're just diverting the topic and just debating.
So look,
you're filibustering because you don't want me to continue on the topic. This has nothing to do, by the way. You filibustered for 4 minutes.
Part of the issue is we have plenty of time to discuss things that you don't like about Israel specifically. But that is not this current topic that is in discussion now. The specific topic in discussion right now is whether or not Hamas committed war crimes on October 7th that are outside of hostage taking, which is also clearly a war crime. And the answer that I think we've already arrived at is the answer is yes, they did commit war crimes on October 7th outside of this.
Okay, you guys are there's 5 minutes left.
One second. Let's let Ashraf.
Pertaining to Hamas. Go ahead. Pertaining to Hamas only. 5 minutes left. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll repeat the same thing that I stated before. I told you, okay, you admitted earlier on that Israel is guilty of the same thing. Now, what I'm telling you is to be consistent and assume the same label and call them terrorists. Now, you said, oh, but it's one individual or a group of individuals. It's not the entirety of the Israeli state. We said the same thing about Palestine. The leadership of Hamas quite explicitly gave orders not to do any of the things that they did. So again, I would appreciate if you remain consistent and you say, okay, well, by that definition, since Hamas is terrorists for what they did on October 7, Israel are also terrorists for what they have been doing for the past 80 years, right? But apparently, the word 7 has infiltrated your brain.
So you have completely misrepresented my position on the use of the word terrorist. The word terrorist specifically refers to an individual. If we can have a look to the ways in which NGOs use the word terrorist to refer to specific organizations, international groups, etc. But that is not the way in which I use the word. At the end of the day, someone who commits terrorism is a terrorist. That does not mean that any group that they're a part of is a terrorist group. In fact, I'd argue that with the way in which I'm using the word terrorist, it would not apply to a group specifically. This is why I've never said that Hamas is a terrorist group. That is not what I've said, and I've not said that at any point in this debate. I have, however, referred to individual members of Hamas as Hamas terrorists.
Let's utilize the case book for international law and the definition of war crimes when it comes to hostage taking, because obviously my opponent, being not very well versed in the realm of how political science addresses the situation, proceeds to say that any form of hostage taking is going to be a law violation. I 100% disagree. That's not the definition of what a war crime is when it comes to hostage taking. What it is when there is a compulsion of a third party to do or abstain anything in exchange for the release of the hostages, right? So if it's between Hamas and Israel, can you name me the third party? that is being convinced by Hamas?
Sorry, when you're taking civilians hostage and across the border, this is clearly a war crime.
No, it's
But
not a
this
war
is
crime.
not in the realm. This is not in the realm of the current conversation. It is frankly irrelevant because you guys admitted the reason why we had to change the specific title of this segment is because you guys admitted that firstly, hostage taking is a war crime in this scenario, that that Hamas did
No, we didn't.
engage in hostage taking. That is absolutely true. This
Yeah,
happened in
we
the organizing of the
admit that they,
event.
yeah,
This
we admit that they
absolutely
take
happened.
hostage. Listen very closely. I don't think you listened, right? Because you just went on like a 2-minute tangent, not addressing anything that I've told you. I told you, listen very closely. I don't intend on repeating this 50 times. It's one of my pet peeves. I've said it time and time again. We're not saying that Hamas did not take hostages. What we're saying is that they're justified in this action, and it isn't a war crime because that's not the definition of the word.
Whether
We can't
or
make
not,
up.
okay, whether or
When it comes
not,
to international law, Kamikaze,
whether even
when it
if
comes
this
to,
is the
excuse me,
case, whether or
Kamikaze,
not hostage
Kamikaze,
taking is
excuse
a
me, I'm
war
almost
crime
done.
is irrelevant
Kamikaze,
to
excuse
the
me.
current conversation. It is
Kamikaze, excuse
specifically
me.
outlined in the
Can you stop?
question that
Can you
was
stop spurging
asked.
out? Can you stop freaking out?
Let
Thanks.
him finish his point. He didn't interrupt you.
In accords with the definition of international law. You cannot make up your own definitions in the middle of the conversation and then go on the basis of your incorrect definition. What I'm telling you is the definition is there. There has to be a third party that is in compulsion to the hostages. Now, I won't repeat my question again because this is the third time of you dodging it. Who is the third party being compelled by Hamas if the war is between Hamas and Israel?
There doesn't have to be a third
Civilians.
party.
What do you mean? The civilians
Then
were
it does
taken
not
hostage.
fall under
That would
the
be the
definition
third
of
party,
international war
yes.
Jihadist, let him speak, Jihadist. Let one of them speak.
The third party here would be the specific civilians who were taken hostage by Hamas. These are people who are being taken hostage. This is a very strange reading of international law. There has to be firstly some third party. That makes no sense whatsoever. When it comes down to it, you could say something along the lines that an active combatant who is taken into custody is a prisoner of war. That would probably be accurate. But not all of the people taken into Gaza were prisoners of war. They weren't combatants. They were civilians, which would make them
Kamikaze,
specifically hostages, to which the Rome Statute applies.
This is actually according to the IHL, ICHL, and
Yeah, this is according to the
ICRC, if I'm not
ICHL. So you're saying it's a strange reading, and what I'm telling you is you just proved my point. You are making up your own definitions. I'm going off what the international law says. So listen very closely because we posted the evidences, and this is one of my pet peeves. Look, we said it before. Check the chats for the evidences that we're posting. What you're doing is you're doing the polar opposite. You're sitting here making up your own definitions and refusing to look at the sources we sent you. We're telling you the definition has to include a third party. Then he said the third party is the civilians. The civilians are Israeli.
It's in order to compel a third party to do. It's not.
Yeah. So out of Hamas, so there's Hamas and then there's Israel. Who's the third party?
This is such a bad misreading of international law that I refuse to believe it's not. I refuse to believe it's not.
Let me just.
Time is up.
Let's just read out specifically what it said.
Yeah. I'll read it out for you because clearly I'm writing in Arabic might be your thing, but reading in English clearly isn't. It says, International Convention on Taking Hostages defines the offence as the seizure or detention of the person, the hostage, in order to compel the third party to do or abstain from doing that. The third party here is Israel. The hostage is taken by Hamas in order to compel the third party, Israel, to trade Palestinian political prisoners and to compel them to abstain from dismantling Hamas in the Gaza Strip. This is obviously hostage taking. This is obviously a violation of customary international law. It's on the international law page of 96 or 96. This is obviously the case. You accepted it to be the case in the debate that you agreed to because it says in the exception of hostage taking, Hamas violated no extra international law on October 7th. This is obviously. This
has to be the last point. The time is up.
I'm just going to make the closing statement on here. Again, he did not address what I'm saying. This is what he said, and I quote, this is going to be funny for everyone that's listening here. He said, Israel is the third party in the current state of war between Hamas and Israel.
No, I didn't. I said Israel
this is going to be very ridiculous. Stop. This is the final statement, Elijah, so please. Stop interrupting.
This isn't the. If you're gonna say this is the final statement, if you want to say this is.
Wait, I'm gonna have to intervene now because this is getting out of hand. Jihadist is gonna say the final statement. Look, Elijah just read that out, and that's it. Khalas, we're gonna move on.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
So as I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted because
It's
they
our statement,
realized
and
that
they get the last minute.
the
Elijah,
definition is
Yeah,
going to
I don't know why
destructive.
they're getting the last statement here. You clearly said that time was up. If you're going to allow him right of
I
response,
said
you're
the
going
time was up, and
to allow
Elijah kept
us time
doing
of
it.
response.
You're not gonna interrupt me, sir. You're not gonna do that respectfully, because Elijah kept reading as I said that. So you're gonna calm down and go ahead, finish your statement.
Thanks. So as I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted on the pretense that they realized I was about to call out the hypocrisy and close, well, the argument. Is simply put, as follows. He proceeded to try and argue that Israel is the third party. No, Israel is the second party, because the war is between Hamas and Israel. Hamas has taken Israeli hostages, and which at the beginning of the war, Israel tried to claim them to be from other nationalities. They lied. Turns out they were all members of the IDF. They were all trained by the IDF. They all held double passports. So
Okay,
there is
Hossein,
no third party. Just like
I
in
think
the
that's enough.
Nuremberg trials, the Nazis that were kidnapped and taken from their homes and dragged to the Nuremberg trials were not considered a war crime when people did that to them. And it's the same way with the Israeli Nazis.
That's enough. That's enough for now. I think that you addressed this point. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the second positive claim. Israel is an apartheid state. You'll have 4 minutes, Jihadist. You can go ahead.
Uh, Israel being an apartheid state.
Yep, you have 4.
Have okay. Yeah. So like we provided earlier, Israel in itself being an apartheid state was started on the basis of the Irgun and the Lehigh. They praised the Irgun and the Lehigh. They were under direct government jurisdiction. They've engaged in several campaigns of quite literally genocide. In the earliest charter that was written down and noted down and spoken about by Abraham Stern was literally the dissolution of any Arab within the country. They even had their own little salute for that, which was equivalent to the Nazi salute. They used to put two fingers together and raise them up. In modern day Israel, they have this all over the place. And when it comes to the issue of Israel being an apartheid state, I've already provided at the beginning of the conversation in which Elijah wasn't present, so I'll have to reread it for him. Let me pull it out here because I do transcript everything I say. We'll have to take a look contextually at very certain things. Israel was established in 1948 following the United Nations Partition Plan, which intended to create separate Jewish and Arab states in the territory known as Palestine. During this period and its aftermath, significant numbers of Palestinians were displaced from their homes, and the Palestinians named the term a Nakba. Well, let's take a look at the specific policies and the practices that they've enacted over the years, and then we'll conclude as to whether it is an apartheid state or not. The laws and citizenry. Since its establishment, Israel has implemented various laws that critics are in unanimous agreement, and there isn't a single individual that could ever even contest this, that the Israeli government institutionalized segregation and discrimination by their laws, for example, the virtue of the law of return in 1950, which grants Jews worldwide the right to return to Israel and gain citizenship. But no such right is extended to the Palestinians that were displaced in 1948, nor to the Palestinians that were displaced in 1967. But God forbid a single Jew feels a little bit remotely hurt in Europe or rural Ukraine, he'll get a free ticket plane all the way to Israel. But a Palestinian who gets his family butchered and his family raped in front of his eyes, nah, they're all terrorists. Land and property laws. Israel regarding land and property has been contentious. For example, the absentee property law, which is defined in their own written accord. Anyone who had left his property to go to an Arab state during the Arab-Israeli war is an absentee. And this property of absentees could then be appropriated by the state. So they took away Palestinian land who ran away from the war and proceeded to give them to the Jews. One of the ones that I've mentioned, is literally the guy in my profile picture, Ghassan Kanafani, who has written extensively about this specific law. The third thing is the settlement and segregation policies. Post 1967, Israel began establishing settlements in the occupied territories: West Bank, East Jerusalem, Gaza Strip, the Golan Heights. These are all illegal under international law. There isn't a single international paper that says Israel is allowed to occupy the Golan Heights. There isn't a single international law that says Israel is allowed to occupy the West Bank. There isn't a single international law that says that Israel is allowed to occupy East Jerusalem. In fact, the ICJ, just as recently as 3 months ago, convicted Israel of breaking this and committing a war and violating international law, in which Israel published on Haaretz that they don't care what the ICJ has to say, because at the end of the day, Israel does what Israel wants, and anyone who disagrees is somehow an anti-Semite. Now, the definition of apartheid, according to the International Convention of Suppression and Punishment of the Crime of Apartheid, which was established in 1976, defines an apartheid as an inhuman act committed for the purpose of establishing and maintaining domination by one specific group, either by virtue of racial or ethnic group, and utilizing systematic laws to oppress those other than this group. And you could see this with the examples that I've listed above with the law, such as the law of return and the law of absentees. Why isn't it being extended to the Palestinians? Surely this calls into the question the integrity of the Israeli state as being founded on apartheid. The Human Rights Organization, several human rights organizations, Amnesty
Your time is
International,
up.
Human Rights Watch have described Israel policies as an apartheid.
Okay, perfect. Yazan, you have 4 minutes. Whenever you're ready, go ahead.
According to the United Nations, it defines apartheid as inhumane acts committed for the purpose of establishing and maintaining domination by one racial group of persons over any other racial group of persons and systematically oppressing them. Another definition actually applies not only to racial groups, but just groups in general that seem to be distinct from the group that is desiring domination. Apartheid can also apply to gender or even national groups. What we have seen take place in modern-day Palestine and Israel is just exactly that. Over the course of decades, we have seen systematic brutalization of the Palestinian peoples by means of terrorizing them in the West Bank through the force of the IDF, insane checkpoints and harassment for zero reason, illegal settlers terrorizing their homes and practicing authoritarian rule over them, backed by the state as well, and even laws made dedicated to directly and indirectly discriminate against non-Jewish Israeli citizens, which happens to be the majority Palestinians. This is not at all surprising, though, as we can see that even in its early roots, Israel has been incredibly fond of such systems. We can see Freudian slips from Zionist officials of today and the past, from the likes of Netanyahu and Ben-Gvir, all the way to Chaim Weizmann and Ben-Gurion. Israel is not a state of all its citizens, but rather the nation state of the Jewish people and only them. Quote unquote from Benjamin, or I would call him Bastard Netanyahu. With regards to Ben-Gvir himself, he is well known for publicly stating his quote-unquote inherent right to visit his quote-unquote holy sites in the West Bank as a Jew, regardless of the detrimental effects it has on Palestinians. Furthermore, early Zionists favored the South African apartheid regime, ironically, or not ironically, I should say, in policy and conduct. There is a particular dimension to this secret consort between Balfour and the Zionist leadership to betray the aspirations of the Palestinian people. It was Weizmann's close friend and future Prime Minister of South Africa, General Han or John Smuts or Schmutz, who, as South African delegate to the British War Cabinet during World War I, helped push the British government to adopt the Balfour Declaration and to make a commitment to construct a Zionist colony under British direction. The relationship between the Zionist movement and the South African settlers had evolved earlier, as had the friendship between General Schmutz and Chaim Weizmann, who, by the way, is a former Israeli president. By the turn of the century, a large Jewish population, primarily from Lithuania, had settled in South Africa. The Zionist movement regarded the population as particularly susceptible to Zionist ideas because of their already established settler status in South Africa. Zionist leaders traveled constantly to South Africa seeking political and financial support. Let's not forget we're talking about the former Israeli president here, Chaim Weizmann, who it seems to be a trend with the Israeli government. Former terrorists become former or then prime ministers and presidents. With all that being said, it is incredibly easy to identify what's taking place on the ground for the Palestinians, as further analysis with statistics and reports will conclude that Israel is simply a bastard apartheid state. And I give up the rest of my time.
Okay, Kamikaze, you have 4 minutes whenever you're ready.
Yeah, so unfortunately, it's the case that both Yazan and Gigi have both misquoted international law here. Specifically, Gigi snuck in an extra word into the Apartheid Convention. When he read out the Apartheid Convention, he imagined that there was an extra group that's included in this definition. This is not the case. The inhumane acts committed for the purpose of establishing and maintaining domination by one racial group of persons over any other racial group of persons and systematically oppressing them. It obviously did not say ethnical groups here. Secondly, he missed out the start of the the Apartheid Convention. Specifically, he ignored the statement where it said that it's this racial segregation as practiced in South Africa. This must be comparative to the situation in South Africa. It clearly isn't. There is obviously discrimination on the basis of ethnicity inside of Israel, as happens in every single country around the world, but not discrimination under the law. In apartheid South Africa, there was a myriad of acts passed by the government that were specifically racialized policy, and these are the policies that are referred to in the Apartheid Convention. The opponent might be tempted to bring in the Rome Statute specifically with regards to this conversation. But firstly, the Rome Statute merely points to the Apartheid Convention to give its definition of apartheid, and secondly, Israel is not a signatory to the Rome Statute. It would not apply in this scenario. I see the rest of my time if I have any.
Yeah, you have 2 minutes left. But okay, Elijah, if you want, you got 4 minutes left. Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Yes, there is a deficit. Your website also, this deficit is which
Bro,
You're a
Elijah,
little
you're
inaudible right
breaking up
now.
horrifically.
You're a little inaudible right now, Elijah. If you want to go fix your mic.
Hello, any better?
Yeah.
Okay, there is a definition of apartheid also given on the UN website, and it's one of which the goal of the apartheid is ethnic homogeneity. And then this is clarified by a definition that finishes to the exclusion of the Kurds and Poles. This is clearly not met in the case of Israel. There were 80,000 Arabs or more than 80,000. There were tens of thousands of Arabs in the Jewish state, qua 1948. It's just not true to say that there has been ethnic homogeneity. There is no definition of genocide that you can find that Israel meets. The idea that, for example, law of return is genocide. I mean, Australia has an infinite law of return for its native Aboriginal population. We would not call Australia a genocide in favour of its native Aboriginals. There is no thing that you bring up that is evidence alone of genocide. There is discrimination on the basis of nationality in Israel. All countries discriminate on the basis of nationality. This is why Palestinians have no right of return, because they are not of the same nationality. This is why also they're held in military courts, because they're not of the same nationality. We can do that later. The idea that there is a systematic apartheid in Israel is just false, because the country of Israel does not exist to the exclusion of the Kurdish group or groups to which the respective international law refers. I yield my time.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the microphone was so bad I didn't even know whether he finished or not.
Wait, what, did you secede your time? Is that what just happened?
Yeah, he yielded his time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So you guys will have 20 minutes cross-exam whenever you're ready. Go.
Right. So again, not a single source. I want everyone in the audience to notice this. None of these individuals have posted a source. It's all yapping, but there is zero evidence when we have posted it. Now, as for Kamikaze's claim, apparently he's accusing the United Nations of adding in words, considering the United Nations considers the word ethnicity but weren't supportive of the ANC. They were more supportive of the white provisional government, right? And that was considered supporting the apartheid state, even though it's by virtue of mere ethnicity and their backgrounds in the form of tribalism. But obviously, Kamikaze does not know that because the United Kingdom does not teach him any of that. In his eyes, everything the West does is correct, and everything the East does is just simply wrong. Now, the reality is that the United Nations themselves have convicted Israel of committing these acts. So it isn't even a debate on this matter. The proof is in the pudding. We have sent the evidences of the condemnations. We have sent the evidences of everything that was written. We have placed forward all of the references. I haven't seen anything from the opponent. And so what I'm saying is just simply put, if you could just show us one single group that denies that Israel is under an apartheid state, a neutral group, right? A neutral group of political scientists or sociologists that have said that Israel does not support or have any form of apartheid state. For example, the law of return. The law of return. Why weren't the Palestinians included, Mr. Elijah? If you could just inform us, enlighten us. Why weren't the Palestinians included in the right of return?
Do you want an answer? Yeah, you want an answer? The answer is because they're a different nationality. You're allowed to discriminate on the basis of nationality.
Okay, so it's on the basis of their nationality. So what? Palestinians are not allowed, but Germans are?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Hold on. Just to be clear.
Hold on, no,
there
Kamikaze,
are
don't
many,
save him.
like every
Kamikaze,
country, hold on. I'm not
save
saving him. He's my debate partner. What are you talking about? Specifically, when we're talking about apartheid, you're allowed to discriminate on the basis of whether or not you're a citizen of the country, and on the basis of nationality. You're absolutely allowed to accept citizens on that basis or not. That's absolutely allowed in international law, and this happens time and time again with regards to like every country in the fucking world.
Okay, so just so we're clear, you just said, and I want to be clear here because this is on recording, you are allowed to discriminate against people that are not from your country. Did you say that right?
If you are not a citizen of the country, yes, you are absolutely allowed to do that,
Can you
unless you
bring
have
can,
entered
can you
into
bring
some
me
other. Unless you have
can you
entered
bring
into
can
a
you bring me
other
one political scientist that
international
agrees with you?
convention, unless you have entered into another convention that like doesn't allow you
Yeah,
to
we've given you.
specifically
Yeah,
do
we've
this,
given you. Yeah, we've
it is
given you sources where
absolutely
Israel is convicted.
okay to allow only citizens of your country to vote, for example. This is
That's not
absolutely
discrimination.
allowed.
The
That's not
problem is
It is
though,
That's not
absolutely
discrimination.
Yes, that is the
discrimination.
Because
definition.
it's
Yes, it
not.
Here's the
absolutely
problem.
is.
No, it
One
isn't
second.
because
That's the definition.
because because
second,
again,
guys.
as I've listed earlier, can you send me? Look, you said that it is absolutely it's absolute discrimination. So this is not discrimination. Discrimination specifically has a very set definition. Now, with that being said, what I'm asking you, Kamikaze, which you still
Wait,
have
what
not
is that
provided,
definition?
What's that definition?
you and
What's that
Elijah,
definition?
you and stop.
What is
that
that
definition of
definition?
You and Elijah,
Discrimination has a
that you and
definition.
Elijah,
Yes. What's
What
that
is the
definition?
definition that you are using for
moderators.
discrimination?
You don't.
Can we go one at
You
a
don't
time?
get
One at a
past.
time. One at a time.
Can the moderators
You
deal
don't
with
yeah,
consider there is a
Tweedledum and
definition and
Tweedledee?
then not give the definition.
Okay, Kamikaze, 1 second. Let him finish his point, then you can press him on that later if he doesn't give the definition.
No, because it's
One
going to
at a
take like
time.
5 minutes. He's done this.
Okay,
He's done this throughout the
Jihadist, go ahead.
entire part of it.
Stop, Elijah. Just go ahead, Jihadist.
No, he's done this throughout the entire.
This is a cross-examination. That's not relevant.
Yeah,
Let
but
him
the
go.
cross-examination.
It's a cross-examination, so we're allowed to ask questions.
I understand, but you not interject while he's making a point.
What is the definition that you
Why?
are using?
Yeah, well, maybe if you stop Tweedledumming and Tweedledeeing me, you'll get the definition.
You had the time to give us the definition right now instead of being a little bitch.
Okay,
all right. Well,
Curse
can
words,
the
please.
moderators
You're gonna mute
please?
him for that. I'll just mute him for that until you're done your point.
Right.
Go
So
ahead.
so it's very clear that my opponents have utterly and completely lost it. Right, and they said their true opinions, essentially revealing their true colors, that they're nothing short of disgusting, filthy individuals who can't have an adult conversation. Okay, your blood pressure must be really through the roof. What I'm saying is just simply as follows. Again, this is not discrimination, because discrimination definitionally is unjust and prejudicial treatment of different categories of people on the grounds of ethnicity, age, sex, or disability. Key word, unjust. It's not unjust to say that people who are not part of your country do not have a say in what happens within your country. That is not unjust. It's unjust to say that people who you are oppressing do not have a right to live in your country as much as some random dude in Germany does. That is unjust. That is a violation of international law. Right? But unfortunately, Kamikaze wants to be disingenuous when it comes to that factor. And he wants to focus on very specific sets of wordings that would disagree or agree with his personal agenda. Whereas the reality is, as I've listed before, the United Nations is in agreement with us on this point. There is no argument to be made from their end. Israel is condemned as an apartheid state. It is considered an apartheid state. Humanitarian groups are in unanimous agreement that it is an apartheid state. Israeli-based humanitarian groups are in agreement that Israel is an apartheid state. Political scientists in unison are in agreement that Israel is an apartheid state. I asked for one thing that they themselves have still not provided, and instead slurred a bunch of insults at me because they cannot talk like adults. And it goes to show how mature the Zionist brain really is. Can you show me one single political scientist that disavows the idea that Israel does not have a single law that enforces apartheidism in accords with their government? That's all I'm asking. And you guys are struggling to do this because you damn well know that you don't have any evidence. So as expected, you resort to cursing and resort to yelling B word.
Okay, can I get in? Have you finished it? Okay. The burden is not, the statement is Israel is practicing apartheid. The burden is on you to show the law, not on us to show a political scientist that disavows it. You're debating us. You're not debating like an authority. You're debating us, and that means that your claims to authority are moot.
Okay, so Elijah,
Okay, so
the thing is, you guys are shifting
I'm
around.
not finished. You interrupted.
Okay, continue.
The question is, what's the law?
Yeah, we've
Sorry?
Yeah, so if you look at the chat that we've posted, you are free to go and read it for yourself. What I'm telling you is that it fits the criteria. Why
So,
aren't the
you're-
Palestinians? Why are the Palestinians, which are being put in open air prison camps, not subject to that law? You said, oh well, it's because of their it's because they're not
occupied.
part of the nation. And I told you, well, someone living in Germany is not part of the nation, so that is unjust in action. It is discriminatory.
So-
Kamikaze, of course,
on.
jumped in, yelled
The
it's
definition of
discriminatory.
discrimination that
Please
was
do not
being
interrupt
used
me.
when I was
Again,
specifically
moderators,
talking
hello.
was the ability to recognize.
Thank you, dude. You have a problem with like talking in line, okay?
Look,
All you have to do
Probably
is
talking too long, so I guess.
Can you make your
Sorry.
point
Yeah,
and
I'm
then
almost
Kamikaze
done.
will answer?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to. That's what I'm trying to get at. If you would just let me damn speak.
No, it's not. You're trying to
I
filibuster.
don't-
You've been doing this since I came in.
Yeah, the only thing that's been filibustering is you guys interrupting me mid-conversation because you don't want to hear the truth. So again, I asked and I still have not received. I said it fits the definition. I've provided the proofs. I've sent the evidences. You haven't sent a single scholarly response to what we said. Article 2, in Article 2, it directly falls. The policy of the law of return directly fits into Article 2, of which I sent in side chat. Now, with that being said, I'm not going to repeat it a billion times, and I'd appreciate it if you don't filibuster and actually answer what I told you. Can you show me one single, political scientist, sociologist, whatever it may be, historian, that turned around and said Israel does not have apartheid laws? That's all I'm asking. Go ahead. I've sent my burden of proof. The issue
one of
is
you guys
you
are-
don't have
I'm
anything to
gonna
rebut it.
clarify. Hold on, it sounded like you were finished. I'm so sorry, but you can't just filibuster forever. If you meet me again, I'm just leaving. By the way, when it comes to discrimination specifically, the definition that I was using for that specific word is the recognition and understanding of difference between one thing and another. When I discriminate between two things, that is what I'm doing. It is the case that sometimes in international law we can discriminate between two things and recognize that they are different. When we allow for a citizen to vote and not allow for a non-citizen to vote, this is discrimination, yes, but it's not discrimination in the way that you're talking about it. It's clearly not unjust or prejudicial. Even under your definition, these examples are not discrimination. Specifically, this discrimination would regard ethnicity, age, sex, or disability. That being said, this is irrelevant to the conversation that we are currently having, specifically a conversation on the crime of apartheid, which very clearly refers to racial discrimination.
Actually, Kamikaze, the issue is that we've sent to you, according to the United Nations and the Convention, where apartheid applies, and it is not exclusive to racial groups. It is actually just
It
cannot
absolutely
actually apply.
is. I will
It is
send
not.
you the link
We
right
sent you the
now.
convention. We sent you the convention, the VC text.
yeah,
You're more than welcome to go look at it. So I just want to say one last thing. I've cited.
Hold on.
I've cited.
I'll
I've
read
cited
from what
60
you sent. Yes, I'll read from what you sent.
Go ahead,
Ready?
please. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Shall apply to the following inhuman acts. Sorry, I've lost my place. Shall apply to the following inhumane acts committed for the purpose of establishing and maintaining domination by one racial group of persons over any other racial group of persons and systematically oppressing them. That does not say ethnical. That does not say anything else. That says racial.
Reading.
In fact, in this definition, we can continue down, but all you're going to hear is time and time again them saying the word racial group or groups. Racial group or groups.
What does or groups apply to?
It means one or more racial group. That's what it means.
Okay. So in regards to the definition applying to only a racial group, you're only going to insinuate that apartheid is including or is exclusive to particularly racial groups. So hypothetically, you can have an ethnicity, right, enacting oppression and discrimination on another ethnicity, but it doesn't fall under the definition of apartheid. Oxford Dictionary disagrees, by the way, but if you want to play the definition
Oxford Dictionary isn't an international law source.
No problem. So Jihadist, I'll let you carry on with the definition where it's applicable, but I want to also address the cited 65 laws that are discriminatory towards the Palestinian citizens inside of Israel today, which none of you have addressed just yet.
So again, they notice this for the audience. They refuse to address anything that we've actually put forth. First of all, he asked me, he butted in, literally interrupted, called me a B word because I wouldn't describe what the definition of discrimination is. Then I gave him the definition of discrimination. Oh, it turns out it disagrees with him. What does he do? Irrelevant to the conversation.
By the way, I just read it out.
So what I told
read
him,
out the definition.
Kamikaze, please do not interrupt me.
I'm sorry, you keep lying about what I said. I'm sorry.
Can the moderators please?
About what I'm said.
Moderators,
you can address that after the fact, Kamikaze.
Yeah, you can address that after the. Look, this isn't
a fact because he goes for 10 minutes.
This isn't
Jihadist,
the
leave out the
McDonald's
song.
one where you just
What
pop
happened?
in and get your burger.
Ashram, can I just?
Elijah,
You're
What
you're
happens in this
inaudible.
conversation?
Sir, you're inaudible,
You're
sir. Can you
inaudible.
fix your mic?
Jihadist,
This
better
is like a
leave
what
McDonald's
happens in this
drive-thru where like you just straight up butt in, dude. We let people
Jihadist.
finish.
Yeah, what happens? What happens in these conversations? What happens seems to happen so far. I've been here for like half an hour, and what happens, or maybe an hour, and what happens every single time is that what we said gets lied about, and then 10 minutes later we're asked to respond to like 15 different lies about what we've said, and then 15 different lies about actual fact on the ground. And it's not a feasible way to debate. It's so clearly not in good faith.
But that's what a cross-examination is. That's literally the point of
No, it's not. A
cross-examination. Now
cross-examination
you're just
is
complaining
not
about
lying
the
about your
format. Who said lying?
Cross-examination is not lying about your opponent.
I never said lying. If you claim that it's a lie, then call him out for that. It's simple. That's what the point
Yes,
of
when we
try to
do,
do it,
we're
and then we
told
can
we're
mute him.
interrupted.
What is this? The weird tactical move you're doing? Just stop
Yeah,
talking.
this
No,
is
let
yeah.
them finish.
when we do that, we
It
get muted.
Oh my
And
lord.
then when we do that, we're told that we're interrupting him.
Because
Elijah,
because
I think you're
yeah, because
filibustering. I think you're
look,
filibustering.
Elijah, can you stop? Can you stop? Can someone just make sure that this isn't
We have
counted
to
towards the
stop
time?
the trauma dumps, and
that's what I'm saying. Just
Yeah,
stop.
'cause-
Stop.
Please allow Jihadist to finish. Please, Elijah, you have to be quiet and allow
When you
him.
when you lie about me,
Okay.
when you lie about me, I will interrupt you. This is the
Okay,
game.
you can
This is
address
the
that after the fact.
Okay,
Yeah,
then
Elijah-
you call him out after he's done. Simple. You're ruining the organization of the
Yeah, you
debate.
can address that after the fact, sir.
No, I won't. When
Elijah-
people lie about me, I will
Oh
interrupt.
my lord. Okay. Just
Yeah, you can address
filibustering.
that after the fact. I don't think you know how to.
It's just filibustering. His trauma dumping.
No, when people lie about me, okay.
Look. Okay, Elijah.
I will interrupt you mid-conversation.
Elijah. Okay, wait, 1 second, Jihadist and Yazan will talk for a second. Okay, Elijah, he lied. Go ahead and call him out. What did he lie about? The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Can I at least finish my sentence before?
I want Elijah to call him out. Go ahead, Elijah. Go
The
ahead.
first thing he lied about was that I said it's a third party. I didn't say Israel was a third
Your
party.
mic is cutting out.
The first thing he lied about was when I came in that I said Israel was the third party before. I didn't say Israel was the third party. The thing he just lied about was Kamikaze saying that it was about the definition of discrimination. The next thing, the next pretense that we need to provide a political scientist, as if like in any other context we'd take arguments from authority, is just ridiculous. Either he thinks the UN is a good source or he doesn't. But yes, the first thing he lied about when I came in the call about 20 minutes ago was that I said Israel was a third party. I didn't say that. And then I got cut off, by the way. Then I got cut off by Ashra because Ashra said the time was up, even though saying that the time was up. You're like, yeah. Anyways.
Okay, can we make sure that we extend all this time, by the way, to like the continuation of the section?
All I heard was he lied about it, party. Okay, that's how bad the microphone is. But all right, can I finish now that you got it off your chest? It's done. Can I now continue my sentence without interruptions?
Or do whatever you want, Jihad. Go ahead.
Sure. But if you lie about me, I'll interrupt you.
So as I was saying,
That's
the moderators will just mute you. It's fine. Everyone's free. So again, I've posited the same thing. Oh my lord! Already, moderators, please.
Stop, Elijah.
Yeah, he's on your side now.
Oh my God! Just let him respond. It's simple as that. Just let him respond.
Look, I don't know if this is like the new Israeli tactic, right? When you get like cornered.
Okay, Jihadist, no more.
People.
Jihadist, just respond. Jihadist, don't say. Just respond. Go ahead.
I'm trying. I'm certainly trying.
No, you're not. You're insulting.
So
and then when
he's muted. He's literally muted. Elijah, he just let you talk the entire time, and he didn't interrupt. And now you're saying he's interrupting midways. You just interrupted him when he just uttered out barely a sentence, bro. Jihadist, go ahead. I muted him.
Right. So after that weird trauma dump filibuster, as I was saying, it's very clear that they are unable to provide the evidences. We have given forward many examples in which the definition of discrimination directly fit into the definition. Kamikaze first asked me to define what discrimination is. I told him it's the unjust or prejudicial treatment of different categories of people, especially on the grounds of ethnicity, age, sex, or disability. He said, people not allowed to vote is discrimination. I told him that's not unjust, because it's not unjust to say that one individual who is not in the country should not maintain say of what occurs within the country, because it does not affect it. Now, with that being said, I already informed them that this does not fall under the category of unjust. Instead of actually saying, well, I'm sorry, Jihadist, I may have incorrectly pressured you into saying what the definition of discrimination is, he goes on and says irrelevant to the conversation. Of course it's 100% relevant. You asked me to define it. Now, as I posted in the Palestine versus Israel text chat, I've posted out literally where the UN expands on these laws. They are deathly afraid of addressing what I've posted in these chats. As you notice, if anyone in the audience could go into the Palestine v Israel chat right above the stage chat, you'll notice we're the only ones that have been posting. These people haven't posted anything beyond randomly hurling bad words at me. Again, under Article 2, Israel falls under this definition, thus justifying them as an apartheid state. I said, everyone is in unanimous agreement that they're an apartheid state. Amnesty International, all humanitarian groups are in unanimous agreement that Israel is an apartheid state. Humanitarian groups within Israel concede that Israel is an apartheid state. The United Nations has conceded that Israel is an apartheid state. Every international group, political scientists and sociologists are in direct agreement that Israel is an apartheid state.
This is not true.
Now, I've posited one very simple statement in which now, for the past 30 minutes, I haven't received a single claim.
GG, come on, he's
Can
come
I,
on, moderator.
Can the moderator?
He's been going for like 2 minutes.
Well, yeah, I'm about to finish.
We surely get the opportunity to reply here. He
He
started
I'm
by
literally about
lying
to done.
about
It's literally
the
the last
order
two
in
words.
which statements were made. He
Yes,
started
two more
off
words.
by
You're just
discussing
Kamikaze, he's almost
specifically.
done, he's almost
done.
I made Jesus Christ.
You're an
don't even
atheist. You don't believe in Jesus, bud. So,
anyways, go ahead.
So-
Yeah, just finish.
right. So as I was saying, it's just one simple thing which they still have not provided for the past 30 minutes. Bring me one sociologist or a single humanitarian group that doesn't call Israel an apartheid state. It's just one. That's all I'm asking. Just one.
Okay, go ahead, Kamikaze.
So he lied specifically about the order of events in which things were stated. I made the specific statement. The statement was that it's okay to discriminate on the basis of whether or not you are or are not a citizen. It is clear that I had a definition that I used when I said discrimination. He wants to pretend that he brought up that term initially. Secondly, I asked him in good faith to define what he meant when he said discrimination so I could figure out where the miscommunication happened. At the end of the day, when I say the word discrimination, I mean discerning between two different groups of things. And it is obviously the case that you can discriminate on the basis of whether or not you are a citizen of a country. That is obviously the case.
Okay, Kamikaze.
Furthermore, just posting a list of laws that you claim violate international law with regards to apartheid does not actually make an argument. It is just a weird appeal to authority. It would have been nice if you came into the conversation, decided one or two laws, and then made the argument, but you haven't done that. This is the strangest way of debating I have ever seen in my life.
So apart from international law, which isn't even important in the claim, I cited to you 65 laws within the Israeli Basic Law. And these all are primarily things that have been made or amended in the last 10 to 15 years. And you will find direct discrimination against Israeli citizens that are non-Jewish, right?
Give me the
Israel's focus
example.
is Jewish.
Instead of
Okay,
just
cool.
asserting it's the case,
No
give
problem.
the example.
I cited
We're running out of
to you the
time. I
list
don't
of
think
them.
you have time to do this, unfortunately.
No problem.
It's
No
the
problem.
unfortunate case of the matter. But
Whatever.
you should have
Beautiful.
just referred to a specific
Beautiful.
instance. I referred to specific instances when I made my positive arguments. You just refused to make reference to specific instances.
Okay, beautiful. So in regards to, for example, the law regarding admissions committees law, okay, amendment number 8 and 12, okay, the description is, I'll read this out in the following. The 2011 admissions committees law permits admissions committees as statutory bodies almost complete discretion to screen applicants seeking to purchase housing units and plots of land in hundreds of Jewish Israeli so-called community towns built on state land in Israel. This is on the basis of arbitrary and racist criteria related to their perceived social suitability to the social and cultural fabric.
So
of a
it's not
community.
explicitly. Sorry, just to be clear, you were making the claim that you could point to explicit discrimination. This is not explicit. To be clear, correct?
Well, no, absolutely, it is explicit. We can actually go over exactly why it's explicit and why it's discriminatory to begin with. Regarding why it's discriminatory, the law empowers admissions committees to reject applicants deemed unsuitable to the social life of the community or the social and cultural fabric of the town. So the law also authorizes admissions committees to adopt admission criteria determined by individual community towns themselves based on their special characteristics, including those community towns that have defined themselves as having Zionist vision. Admissions committees thus have broad discretion to reject applicants based on vague, broad, and subjective criteria that are deliberately amendable to being exploited as a means of excluding those who are not part of a Jewish social and cultural majority. That is one out of 65. We can continue on to the rest. with regards to foreign property ownership. The amendment passed in March 2011 prevents any person
Sorry, none
or
of this
party.
just. Sorry, I understand. I just want to clarify something. I don't mean to interrupt. But this. Sorry, you made the claim that this is explicit. When we're talking about explicit, I'm surely you understand like what explicit means. It's not something that would result in potentially discriminatory practice. This is obviously bad, but things that might result in discriminatory practices are not apartheid. When we're looking at apartheid, we're looking at things like the Bantu Authorities Act. We're looking at things like the Natives Abolition of Passes and Coordination of Documents Act that are specifically built on like racial lines. They specifically
So
refer to these racial groups, and they explicitly line this out. It is the case that in many countries, minorities face all sorts of discrimination, but that does not make countries apartheid countries.
okay. So in regards to the amendment of 2021, which I would actually disagree with, that first law actually gives a lot of room for segregation in the sense that if a town
But it
feels
might
that
give a
the
lot of room, but
incoming
that's not
population,
sufficient. Continue.
no, I mean, we see it active all day, but let's say, for example, the amendment of 2021, where the right to self-determination is exclusive only to Jewish nationals, right? And this was posted 2021 in the Israeli Basic Law, explicitly mentioned, and you can go look at Section A where it actually cites it. If you were going to sit here and insinuate that this is not actually explicit or doesn't give any sort of exclusivity to racial or ethnic privilege, then I mean, we're just acting delusional, ignoring text here. I mean, you can look through the 65 yourself and you will see exactly the law itself, what it enacts and why it is discriminatory and how it's being enacted today. And this continues on furthermore. I'll give you even, for example, what I
All right,
mentioned
hold on.
earlier.
How about we stop and we have a look at the specific law that you're talking about?
Sure.
How about we do that? Like, this is the
Sure.
much better way of having this conversation.
Sure.
So what is the specific law? Is it in practice today? And when did it get instituted?
Okay. So 2021, Israel amended in its basic laws. Okay. Section A, let's look here. It's called the Jewish National Law or Jewish National Statehood, I guess, identified. Basic law. This is known as the Nation State Bill. That specifies that the country's significance is to the Jewish people. It was passed by the Knesset with 62 in favor, 55 against, and 2 abstentions. And it is largely quote unquote symbolic but declarative in nature. The law outlines a number of roles and responsibilities by which Israel is bound in order to fulfill the purpose of serving as the Jewish nation state. Of course, it was met with heavy backlash. If you'd like to look at the law
Yeah.
yourself, I
So we can
post
have
it
a look
for
at
you.
the
We
law.
can.
Yeah. None of the stuff that I'm seeing in here, I'm just scrolling through right now, do anything different to what the majority of the Arab states in the region do. The Arab states in the region specifically declare them to be Arab states, Arab homelands, Arab places for Arabs to live, places that are based on the religious traditions exclusive to Muslim people. This does not make it places apartheid regimes. I don't like this law. This isn't a law that I would be okay with passing in my country. However, it is not the case that this makes it an apartheid regime.
Okay, so in regards to you saying other Arab states having it, that is actually completely false. There are no Sharia-based societies today that give any sort of discrimination, except with a small exception on the basis of race. Actually, never in
Listen,
race.
can
It's
this be
usually
the final
religious.
point, by the way? Because we have to move on to the neutral topic. Time has been up.
Sure, that's fine. That's fine. You will
Sorry, go
never
ahead.
find a situation with an Arab state or Islamic nation nearby where it segregates or discriminates or gives exclusivity of self-determination to a race at the very highest extent, which is completely separate and has a lot more nuance to it. It will be on the basis of religion, and all of Israel's neighbors do not even enact this as of today. That would just be a tu quoque, even if it was accurate, and it simply is not accurate. Simply giving rights to self-determination, as well as the other 65 bullshit laws that are in the Israeli amendments as of today, are completely explicit and on the basis of ethnic group. And I think we can, just check out the text for itself, and the evidence speaks for itself in the chat that we've
But
posted the rules.
all it says, just to be clear, the basic principle B, all it says
Can we move
is
on to the
that the
neutral
national
topic?
group,
Kamikaze?
Jewish group, just to be clear, all it
give him
says,
his left.
just give me the quick right of turn, it's going to take 5
Yeah, yeah.
seconds. All it says
No problem.
specifically is that the Jewish people should have self-determination inside of Israel. But that's true. That's true, and that's true of every national group inside of a state.
Okay. Since that's the last point, I want you and Elijah to go through these 65 laws we've posted, but it's okay. We'll go ahead and post.
Okay, you
go to
can
the
post
next
whatever.
topic.
You can look at it after. Now we're
No
going to move
problem.
on to the neutral topic, which is justification/analysis of the Hamas's actions and the operation of October 7th. We can start with 4 minutes each. Who wants to start this?
We don't have any opening statements for this topic, unless Elijah or
There's no
Kamikaze have
opening
them.
statement?
But-
Yeah, I thought we nixed this section.
Oh, yeah.
Do you guys have any opening statements?
Hang on. I thought we cut this section.
Okay, it would just be like a 40-minute cross-examination and dialogue then. Whatever, sorry.
No, I thought we cut this section.
Like completely?
Off this section?
No, I don't
Yes.
see any openings in the format. There's no openings, but it just says a cross-examination. Do you guys want to do a 40-minute cross-examination on
Okay,
this? If not 40, do you want to do like 20?
Didn't we already do October 7th?
No, this
No,
is the
Elijah.
justification/analysis of Hamas's actions and the operation of October 7th.
Yeah, that's what we did. We said Hamas, talking about Hamas. That's
Yeah,
what we
but
did.
Elijah, I sent to you. Can we have it here in recording?
I mean, look. I don't know if you guys
documentation.
want to like. Okay, this would just be a 40-minute cross-examination. I don't know if you guys want to do 20 cross-examination or something, or if you guys all agree to just cut it out, we can move on to the conclusions and the closing
Yeah,
statement.
what happened in previously was supposed to be
Your mic is cutting out.
Sorry, Elijah, you're cutting out, man.
Okay, so we were supposed to be doing Hamas war crimes, and we didn't stay on top of it during the last section. So now we're in a position where this has already been covered.
Look, okay then. Would you guys all agree to just maybe lower down the time limit to like 20 minutes or something and just make any like side comments that you guys didn't get to make on that topic? Or we can just completely get rid of it and move on to conclusions. So it's whatever you guys want, it's majority.
I know the debate has been going on for quite some time, but Elijah, you have we have it all listed here. I can literally send screenshots. We have agreed to this topic, and this topic is actually no.
Claiming that you
You
guys
can't
already
make
went
that
over
claim
it.
unless no. Unless you're running away, Elijah. We have not went over the broader topic that we already discussed.
Just putting it out there.
Elijah,
I did, Sean.
the positive claim number 2 is regarding the war crimes beyond taking hostages on October 7th. This is a justification from our end and an analysis from your end, or both sides, on October 7th itself and the overall efforts and actions of Hamas. I've sent this in the text message from days ago. We've all agreed upon it. I would not like to skip over this, but if you guys have to, that's completely fine.
Kamikaze, are you okay with going over this, Kamikaze?
I don't care. I thought we nixed it, but I don't.
Yeah, we only
care.
nixed it's just like a big cross examination. It's 40 minutes. I don't know if you guys want to do 20 minutes instead or whatever.
Okay, well, how about we do a section where they try and justify October 7th? We just respond.
But that's literally this section though. That's 20. It's
Okay,
literally a justification/analysis, and it's just a cross examination.
Yeah, the cross examinations haven't included question marks. We'll go for it.
Whatever. This is just meant to be a cross examination. Do you guys want to make it? You guys still want it to be 40 minutes, right?
Yeah.
I don't
40
see
minutes.
how-
You okay with that,
okay,
Elijah? You okay with that, Kamikaze? 40 minutes. 40
No,
minutes.
I mean,
is okay?
what I would propose, Elijah, is that you guys do a critique of October 7th while we justify October 7th. We can do, for example, an analysis on the war on Gaza in general, and you can do a defense on the war on Gaza in general. How does that sound?
I haven't prepared that, but I could do that if you want.
Yeah, it would just be. Do you want it to be 20 minutes still or 40 minutes? Let's just decide on the time real quick.
Kamikaze, what do you think?
I'm okay with whatever.
40 or 20?
I know Jed is kind of getting lengthy, but if you have something, I completely understand. Yeah, I don't want to put you on the spot.
I mean, I have to pray soon, but like I don't like. You guys can do 20 or 40. It's your choice.
Yeah, I think Jed, just go ahead and pray while we start, because it's gonna be lengthy, and then.
I'll do 40 minutes. I'll put the time on 40 minutes.
Okay.
To be completely honest, the section that I was supposed to be doing, I've genuinely terrible day. The section that I wanted to be doing was indigeneity, but I know that you've already done that.
Yeah, but you said you wanted them to do like a justification of October 7th, but this is going to.
No, what I said was that I was willing to justify October 7th. what I want, if I didn't have my brothers, what I'd like to do is
But it's very hard to
do
understand you. Your mic is not the best thing.
Yeah, look,
yeah.
Elijah. Here's I'm gonna do this in all sincerity.
What I do would be like 20 minutes of it, justification of October 7th, and 20 minutes of it back on the claim Palestinian Arabs aren't indigenous.
Okay,
That's
Elijah,
very weird.
let's do this then, Jeb. I'm gonna give him 10 minutes on indigeneity as he wills. We'll respond with a baby cross examination. Okay, and then that'll be within the 40 minutes. It'll be 30 minutes left to the final topic. And Jed, if you have to pray, you have to pray. That's fine. We'll just try to be like in good
So
faith.
what's the time we're all agreeing on right now?
So yeah, so 10 minutes, Elijah, for indigeneity discussion. I would prefer that you don't do an opening statement, so we actually have time to discuss evidence. And then 30 minutes for the last topic on October 7th in the Gaza war. How does that sound?
Yeah, I mean, I can cut the opening statement down to everything.
I mean, sorry to
You have to
interrupt, Jed. If you want to pray, just pray, man. I'm gonna moderate on your behalf.
Yeah, can you take over for me for like a
Yeah, sure.
I'll
You
be
guys
back.
cool?
I'll be back.
Okay, yeah, that's perfect.
I'll be back.
Barakallah feek. Alright. Yeah, Elijah, 10 minutes on indigeneity, cross-examination or discussion with evidences, and then 30 minutes on the last topic. Sound good? I think that's more than fair,
Yes.
considering we're like revising
I mean-
something you were absent for.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna start.
Well, you want us to skip the intro? We can skip the intro, and then let's get straight into it.
Sorry, say that again.
You wanted to skip the intro. We can skip the intro and get back into it. There is no basis to say. Well, you want to skip the intro. I'll lay out very in 2 sentences. There is no basis to say that the Palestinian Arab population are indigenous in a way that cannot be claimed to be Jews.
Okay, should I start the timer, by the way, Elijah? It's so difficult to hear you. Like, I didn't even know you were
No.
opening.
We can skip the introduction because you want to.
Skip the opening statement and just go ahead into cross-examination.
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna start the timer for the cross-examination now. Go and try to get closer to the mic or clear it up a lot. It's so difficult to hear you.
Yeah, sorry, bad Wi-Fi.
Okay, that's better. I'm gonna start now. Okay, so go ahead.
Sorry, I thought it was our claim that you were cross-examining us.
Yeah, it is your claim. I'm asking you if you want to go ahead and start cross-examining us on the claim, or you want me to go ahead and give a justification for what we deny of it.
Yeah, no, we make the claim, then you question us about it.
Okay.
Elijah, just set out the argument like very quick, like maybe like
Oh,
3 sentences,
when
and
we
then they
talk-
can do their thing.
When we talk about Palestinian Arabs, we're talking mostly about people that weren't present in what you would call historic Palestine in the year 1900. So that when we're talking about these people, we are talking about a category of people which roughly exist in the same category to the Jews that you would say immigrated in the Aliyah. So that there's no way in which you can make a claim about Palestinian indigeneity that I can't make a claim about Jewish indigeneity.
Okay, so we've posted in the VC text, just to revisit this. I'll let you speak now, Jihadist, but we've posted as of today, according to geneticists, according to the United Nations, according to genetic studies and DNA reports on all of this kind of stuff, Palestinian Arabs of today are not only indigenous to the land by means of the ethnicities that they relate to as of the historic area, but also more indigenous than the average Israeli citizen today. I've cited my sources in the VC text. According to the United Nations itself, Palestinians are also recognized as indigenous peoples to the land of Palestine. And with regards to the quote-unquote allegations that the majority of the Palestinians that reside in Palestine today are a result of some sort of external immigration from other nations nearby, there is zero basis for this. People usually misconstrue the claims that some would make regarding the people that live in Gaza. But the funny thing is about the people that live in Gaza, the majority of them are refugees from other areas they've been exiled from post-Nakba. So if you have any genetic studies to back your claims, that would be nice. but I don't see anything else that
They
you can
don't.
make a claim to.
It's not
They don't.
literally, it's theoretically impossible that genetic studies could prove what I'm seeking to prove, which
Yes, they do.
shows
Yes, they do.
no,
Yes, they do, and they
it's
can.
not.
And we posted the evidence. Don't just say
Okay, but it's
impossible.
not,
We send the evidence inside chat. So with
it's
that
not
being said,
possible.
I've also
It's
posited the
not
following
interrupting.
argument,
Hold on, can
Elijah.
someone
It's
mute
not.
this guy for interrupting? Hello?
Yo, one at a time, please. Go ahead,
My apologies.
Elijah.
Okay,
Go ahead,
so
Elijah.
it's not possible that with the claim I'm making that genetic studies could prove it, which shows that you've missed my claim. My claim, it's not possible that genetic studies could show that a person was either in the South Levant in 1900 or was not. How could a genetic study prove that?
How can a
Okay.
genetic study prove that the population residing in Palestine is indigenous to the...
No, how
Yeah,
could
go ahead.
no? My claim was about the concentration of people there in the year 1900. It was about the concentration of people in the South Levant in the year 1900. How could a genetic study prove that?
Yeah, because genetic studies studies the genome and where it originated from. And if the genome
In
is from the
1900.
Canaanites, yeah, there are. You realize there are corpses that you could derive genes from the 1900s, right? You're aware of
Yes,
this
but it
phenomenon, right?
Yes, you could
You're
show.
aware of genealogy tracking, right? So we could go back to those who were deceased in the 1900s and before. You're aware of this, right?
Are you providing any evidence that this has been done?
Yes, we are. That's what the study is for, in which you are just responding with impossible,
No,
but refusing to actually check it. So Elijah, my question to you is, so the question that we're bringing up, Elijah, which now, again, we've even provided we've even shown you how you guys maintain a double standard with this. You are an Orthodox Jew, Elijah, are you not? You're aware of your Torah, are you not? Can you tell me what Joshua is notable? What Joshua is notable for?
Joshua is notable for lots of things. I don't know why it's relevant, my religion.
Okay, it's relevant. I'll tell you why it's relevant. Because Joshua was the one who led the attacks on the Canaanites. The Jews themselves are not indigenous to the land. They're all from Egypt. Now, with that being said, what I'm telling you is that the geneticists, this has nothing to do with Tukokwe because we provided the genetic studies and we're even providing how you are not. Can I continue talking, please? Thanks. So as we provided previously, again, yeah, it's not a tukokwe because it adds to the claim that I'm making. I'm not saying, hey, look, how could you say this when you guys are doing? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we have provided that the Palestinians are indigenous to the land, and now I'm providing you that the Jews are not indigenous to the land in accordance with your own scripture. You're not indigenous to the land. There is a study that directly even provides for you, and I've sent it in of you. Now, even when it comes to just simply put genetic phenotypes, that all of the individuals in Israel, okay, have a higher susceptibility to skin cancer, which is not a trait of a Semite. These are not the traits of individuals who are indigenous to that region. They are not indigenous to that region.
Did you miss my definition of indigenous?
Sorry, just one of the Sorry, you go ahead.
You missed the definition of indigenous, which is why when people say indigenous, what they mean is the right to live in the land. And what that generally is defined as is something like you have, for the last few hundred years, been living in the land. Not that you have a genetic phenotype that can be proved out in the study to be from the land, because this isn't what I'm talking about. This is why genetic studies can't prove it. Genetic studies can't prove where somebody's was in the year 1900 or where somebody's descendants were in the year 1900. They can prove where people in the 1900s originate from in terms of their ancestry, which is what you said before, but that's irrelevant to the question. The question as to where, no, not yet. There were Arabs in the land from the 7th century. Yes, we agree. There were Arabs in the land from the 7th century. This is irrelevant to my question because these Arabs generally didn't remain in the land. The population was declining, according to the US consul to Jerusalem, at the year 1880 for the previous decades. This is only to say that in this, what exists now in Palestine is that there are a majority of Palestinians who descend from areas outside of the land, at least in the recent years. That's my only claim. Nothing to do with geneticism.
Okay, again, you've already misappropriated the definition that we gave. You said indigenous does not mean native to the land. It means you just moved in there. I don't know what type of
That's not what I said.
book you're
That's
reading
not
in
what I
order
said.
to reach that
That's not what I
conclusion.
said. That's
But the
not what I
word
said.
indigenous means originating or occurring naturally in a particular place, i.e., native. Are the Jews native to that land? No, they're not. Geneticists have directly
Well-
said in the study, which you're just saying impossible, 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 but not actually bothering to read the study,
Can
nor
I
actually
respond to him
addressing the
lying
study.
about me? Is this allowed?
Hello, I'm talking. Do you not hear me talking?
Yeah, I said I'd interrupt you if you lied about me.
Moderator.
Look,
Hey,
Elijah,
hey.
Elijah. Listen,
One
I
at a time.
understand that you think he's lying about you. By the way, I'm back.
Welcome
Okay,
back,
but
sorry.
listen, I understand that like you think he's lying
So,
about you. But to
with regards
progress
to
the
the
dialogue, you
definition
have to let him finish his points.
of
So, like,
indigenous, according to the Oxford Dictionary, it has the following two that are applicable: originating or occurring
All
naturally in
right,
a
wait.
particular
I just
place,
can't make my point, I guess.
or native. And so I'll let you make this point. And then or the other definition would be inhabiting or existing in a land from the earliest times or from before the arrival of colonists.
Okay, so just to clarify,
Right, so it doesn't.
the argument
Hold on, because I wasn't done.
the argument being made is that because
Jed,
Jews
hello, moderator,
invaded,
please.
Elijah. Let Jihadist was making a point. Yazan, who was his debate partner, just added on to something he said. Let Jihadist finish his point.
Okay.
If he's lying, don't interrupt. You can call it his lies after.
We got about a minute and a half, so
yes, go ahead. Make it fast.
I'll be very quick. So, to put it simply, we've provided the study. What we're telling you is to address the material of the study. What you're doing is just saying, it's impossible. It's impossible. Nope. According to me, it's impossible. I told you, listen, we don't care if it's according to you, it's impossible or not. You are a nobody. Go check the study and refute the study. If you cannot provide a refutation to that study, your argument falls apart. It doesn't matter what words you spew out of your mouth. You need to refute the study.
Unfortunately, the case is that you've actually misread the study. So I'm having a look at the study that you specifically put in, the origin of Palestinians and their genetic relatedness to with other Mediterranean populations. Your specific claim is that that Jews are not genetically from this area. The comparison with other Mediterranean populations by using neighbor joining dendrograms and correspondence analyses reveal that Palestinians are genetically very close to Jews and other Middle East populations, including Turks. It goes on to say that archaeological and genetic data support both Jews and Palestinians came from the ancient Canaanites, who exclusively mixed with Egyptians, Mesopotamians, and Anatolian people in ancient times. Thus, Palestinian-Jewish rivalry is based on cultural and religious, but not genetic differences. So I don't know why you would link this.
Okay.
The reason being
the reason being is because you said it yourself in the study. This is what I mean when I say you read certain words and then it just flies over your head. It told you that it's from the Mediterranean populace. The Jews were not in the Mediterranean populace. That's the whole point. You guys not claim that you were dispersed.
It's saying that the genetic differences aren't sufficient.
Are you guys?
1 second. Kamikaze is not done.
Can I finish? Were you not? Do you not claim that they have been dispersed all over Europe? What the hell does that have to do with the Anatolian side? We're not saying that there was no Jews there. We're saying the Jews here today are not indigenous to the land. Netanyahu, there isn't a single Semitic blood in him. If we give him a DNA test, he'd go back to some Polish father and a Polish mother who ended up converting to Judaism. So the idea is that the Palestinians were there. The Palestinians who were there and the individuals who were there mixed with the Mediterranean side that go back to the Canaanites. Now, you're missing the point. Why? Because what I'm telling you is that there is an issue. What is the issue? Remember when I asked Elijah, what is Joshua most notable for? And he dismissed it, acting like he doesn't know what Joshua is notable for. In Deuteronomy, Joshua went and ordered to fight the Canaanites. If the Palestinians descend from the Canaanites and the Jews fought the Canaanites, that means the Palestinians are the indigenous ones, and the Jews literally went, killed the Canaanites, mixed with them on the basis of raping them, and then said, we're indigenous too. We're saying this is wrong because if, let's assume that the Jews never attacked the Canaanites, that study would never include the Jews to begin with. That's the point that I'm making.
Okay, one, your own study disagreed with you, claiming both Jewish and Palestinian indigeneity. Two, you have to pick the standard for indigeneity. Either your standard is the one in which we're talking about geneticism, in which case your own reading of your study is wrong, or it's a standard in which we're talking about fathers and grandfathers, which was the one that I tried to do before, but you eschewed it.
Okay, so we're pretty much done with the 10 minutes. Just to
Are
be on the
you
fair side.
debating or moderating? I'm confused.
Yeah, because I was
I gave us
what was
10
the
minutes
timer?
for this
But
section.
do you
as
guys agree with that?
promised,
Do you
and
guys
then
agree with
we
those
have
10
the
minutes?
next
Is
30
there like any
minutes for the
sort of?
other
Yeah,
sections. I'm just
I
being
agree
fair.
with it. It's
Oh,
just,
okay,
it's just
okay.
odd to have one of the debaters doing the timing.
Yeah, no, I was
I mean,
going
if we
to.
want to
I had to go
extend this
pray.
another 2 minutes and like
Yeah.
1 minute per closing, I mean, that's fine. I mean, I'm
No,
just
no,
trying to
it's
pick a
completely
fair
okay.
thing.
It's just weird to
Yeah, he's
have.
fine. He's
It's
fine.
just
You're just
weird because
confused
the
on why you were
moderation
taking the
somehow
time, and that's all
started.
it
I
is.
didn't.
I had.
Okay, moderation went and prayed. Another moderator stepped in. Moderation came back before the 10 minutes
Was
were
there
up.
ever a
But
point at which there wasn't a moderator? Because I noticed
No,
that
no,
he
no, no,
announced his
bro,
re-entry like
Elijah,
10 minutes before you said that.
bro, Elijah. There was a
yeah,
guy named.
so Saint Jad of
Something
Beirut.
Thomas
Okay,
who
I
was
told him I
here.
have the timer
Stop,
on.
stop,
The
stop.
other
That's
guy,
irrelevant. We can just
Yeah,
continue
exactly.
on.
It's really
Just
irrelevant. You agree with
let
the
the
time, right?
moderator do what the moderator's doing. Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, I had to go. I'm back now. There was another moderator in my place
sure,
for
I'm
a
just
little
letting
bit, but
everybody know
Yazan
that
kept
10
the
minutes up
timer.
for
You guys
this
already agreed it's
discussion is
10 minutes,
over.
right?
If you guys
There's
want to
no
get into the
bias,
next
right?
topic, we can. If you want to continue this topic, we can. It's up to y'all. I
I'm
prefer
sorry,
to
I
get to
missed
the
that.
30 minutes.
Two people were talking at once.
Oh my word.
I'm saying the 10 minutes for the discussion about indigeneity are over. Just to be
Yep,
fair,
we'll
we
move
timed
on.
it. Okay, so we'll move on, and maybe we can talk about indigeneity another time, and we have our sources cited. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into October 7th, the actions of Hamas, and the analysis of that, as well as the justification, and then the analysis of the Gaza war.
This is 10 minutes, by the
So
way, right?
I'm going to open this since I haven't talked much in the last few minutes. Regarding the October 7th incident, we are obviously going to be taking the side that is justifiable and that is primarily going to be identifiable as a hostage operation that went south in one way, not necessarily by means of Al-Qassam directly, which also led to the tragedies that we see today throughout the Gaza war. That's pretty much what we're going to roll with as far as what we identify it as. We refute and defend most of the allegations against Hamas's alleged terrorism. We refute the rape allegations, the intent or the quote unquote genocidal intent by Hamas to target systematically civilians. And we have sources to back this all up by way of IDF spokespeople, Israeli media sources, and Israeli civilian testimony on that day, as well as the treatment of hostages as of today and since then.
Okay, so the very definition of the reason that Hamas went to war specifically and the goals is in contrast to international law. We get to go back to the initial claim, one of the other sources that you provided that you clearly haven't read. Hostages are persons who, irrespective of their status, have been detained under circumstances in which death or injury to themselves or those close to them or continued unlawful detention is threatened in order to compel a third party, in this case Israel, to do or to abstain from doing any act in exchange for the release or safety of the hostage or others threatened. This is your source. Under international law, this is a war crime, and there is no justification for war crimes.
Yeah, I do see ethical and moral justification regarding the actions. I'm not going to really discuss the legality behind the hostage taking. I'm really giving a justification that taking hostages is completely ethical in this scenario, considering the circumstances that the people in Gaza were in. And in regards to the treatment of them, we clearly see no sort of negligent or terrorist or hostile-like treatment. As sad as it is for you guys, every single Israeli in the hands of Hamas, or that could have been apprehended or that was taken, is a bargaining chip against that government in order to blackmail it for the interest of the Palestinians that they deserve. So forget the legality aspect. I don't hold international law as some sort of gold standard. I will defend it where I can, but in regards to hostage taking, that's not my area of expertise. I believe it's completely justified for a nation and group of people who's being oppressed to fight a country that has been consistently breaking international law by breaking international law itself.
So I absolutely agree. In regards to the fact that people who are engaged in international armed conflicts absolutely have the right to to continue those international armed conflicts. That's absolutely okay. The issue is when it comes down to attacking and killing innocent civilians, people who are not part of that international conflict. And you sort of brush away the fact that it's not only Israelis who suffered at the hands of Hamas. It was also internationals who were in the region at the time. The very famous German girl who was at the concert, who was killed by Hamas, suffered at the hands of Hamas. We have many examples of people of all races, religions, and creed who suffered at the hands of Hamas, who have never served in the IDF. They've not got no real association with Israel, except for they were there at the time. These actions are obviously not justified. Furthermore, it is obviously not justifiable to summarily execute people who have been taken hostage and who pose no threat to the people around them. And this is also something that Hamas partook in.
Yeah. So unfortunately for the Zionist PR, there is literally zero proof and to support the claim that Hamas systematically targeted and terrorized civilians. We have numerous.
Did I say that?
Well, I hope that's not what you're claiming, because what you're saying is that we have
Did I
cases of
say that?
Hamas
But I'm just asking, did I say that? Could you please respond to what I said, not something that someone else said at some point?
No, I'm going to give you what you told me. You told me that there is a case in which other foreign nationals suffered at the hands of Hamas, correct?
Yes.
They weren't foreign. The
Okay.
German girl was an active. By the way, I just want to show you the disingenuous of the disingenuous tactics of these Zionists. The German girl wasn't just German. She had dual citizenship. She was conscripted by the IDF. As a matter of fact, she was literally in the middle of her 2-year tenure. What are you talking about, dude? Get your information right.
That's called a foreign national, yeah.
So no, he said several internationals have been attacked. I
No,
said
he said
there aren't
foreign
internationals. Well, listen, look,
nationals.
it's in the recording. It's in the recording. When the time
Sure.
comes, right? We'll just show you it in the recording. So
She's
with
also,
that being
by the
said,
way, she's also an international.
so with that being said,
because she's not.
with that being said, Elijah, please stop, right? Because you do this thing where when I talk, right, it's almost like a switch goes off in your head, like it's time to interrupt.
No, you
Right?
lie and then I interrupt.
Okay, Elijah, we already established you can't do that during a process. Like, you just can't do that during a dialogue. You can call it as lies after. No, continue, Jihad.
So can you please continue to have this? Yeah.
Right. So be careful, Jet. He might call you a terrorist sympathizer because you decided to actually be fair. So
I'm sorry, I've not called anyone a terrorist sympathizer.
So as I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted by Elijah yet again in the middle of me exposing the double standards that they maintain. Again, to me, it seems very egregious when the opposition proceeds to claim that Hamas has acted in this certain manner, which is unacceptable, despite them being oppressed for 80 years. I've presented this argument before. If you proceed to oppress a group of people for the past 100 years, present apartheid-based policies against them, slaughter them, cause massacres, kill them, rape them, displace them from their homes, and then you get one smidgen of fighting back one single war crime in the face of thousands of war crimes, which are convicted against Israel in accordance with the same UN you were clinging to earlier, right? They'll turn around and they'll proceed to cry, wolf. Oh my God, look what they did. October 7th, terrorist attack. It's our version of 9/11. No, it isn't. You were oppressing people. And it's not your version of... It wasn't your version of 9/11 because America was not oppressing... Stop. America was not oppressing and systematically butchering a bunch of the people that attacked them. That's a terrorist attack. Now, when it comes to Hamas, the action would be justified on the pretense that you guys have been oppressing them for the past year. So I'm saying, just as you are to be blaming Hamas for their actions of war crimes, I'm saying be consistent and call Israel a terroristic group for committing worse war crimes and heinous, disgusting acts against these same individuals that they're calling terrorists. Be consistent in your position.
So, real quick, the ICJ judgment that you were referring to, could you just link that?
Yeah, sure, of course. I linked that already, by the way. All you have to do is scroll up. See, this is proof that you haven't been paying attention.
No, see, proof that you're not paying attention is that neither me nor Kamikaze have the ability to link in the Israel Palestine chat. You keep on accusing us of not sending sources. That would be not.
Oh, you guys can't link anything there?
Okay.
No.
Oh,
you have the media. They have the Media Plus rule.
Pardon?
No, but they can't text in that chat. That's the thing.
Can you guys text in that chat?
No.
Can Kamikaze text in that chat?
No, I don't think they can. If you guys have any sources right now, give them to me and I'll send it in there.
No, hold on,
Any
because I got
claims I've made,
Sorry,
I've
I
made
just
response I've had.
yeah. I'm
Kamikaze,
just
can you type in there?
intrigued. Can you just like take me to, because the ICJ does a really good job at publicizing all documents with regards to ongoing cases. Obviously, the judicial arm of the UN. I'd just be interested to see the specific ICJ case you were referring to when you said the UN has prosecuted.
Yeah, here it is. I'll repost it.
people.
I'll repost it again. Right. So if you take a look at the
Mhm.
ICJ, they went and
Wait,
they
this is the
accused.
Times of.
they
Sorry,
got-
this is the Times of Israel. This isn't from the ICJ.
Do you want the ICJ itself? Here it is. We'll get the ICJ ruling.
Mhm.
Right, but what I'm showing is Israel themselves acknowledging this occurred. But okay, that's fine. You want. I understand. You want news that is utterly not biased. I understand the Times of Israel is indeed a Zionist publication, and they tend to lie a lot. I understand.
Well,
your
no, it's not about.
misnomer.
It's not about.
No, it's okay.
not
It's
about
okay, Kamikaze.
bias.
It's okay, Kamikaze. I'll just send you it.
The concern here is that I get the feeling this is referring to something that was not a
Okay, no problem.
not conviction or anything like this. You're giving too much
Yeah, sure, I'll show you.
like strength to the claim that you're making.
Sure, here it is. Let me show you this. We'll pull it out right here. Let's pull it out. ICJ conviction.
Also, as I was saying, right now it's if you guys want to send me sources, Kamikaze and Elijah, I'll post them for you. I didn't know that you guys didn't have crimes.
Sure, whenever I make a claim, if you want a source, I'll provide.
Yeah, just tell me like to check my DMs or something. I got you.
Okay.
Here it is. Here you go, my friend. South Africa versus Israel. It's crazy that South Africa.
This is
has
in
the
its
most
preliminary
importance outside of
stages.
the
What are you
United States.
talking about? There's no conviction here. This is in its preliminary stages. All that
There's
has
no-
been
there's no- there's no
ascertained at this
conviction.
point
Scroll down.
is that there is
Scroll
a
down.
plausible right to
Okay,
be that
I'm sorry. I'm
South
sorry.
Africa is suggesting.
Scroll down. Scroll down.
What do you
Scroll down.
mean?
It says the joint declaration of
Jihadist,
judges.
don't
Hold on.
interrupt.
Relax.
Jihadist,
Jihadist.
Relax. One sec.
Jihadist.
Because I just want to show you. How this guy.
Jihadist, you're interrupting.
Jihadist. He
Oh.
just wanted you to source it. He just wanted you to
Yeah,
source it. So just let Kamikaze analyze the source and go through
Yeah,
it.
I sounded in
this
touch.
specific case,
Yeah,
I have read
Jihadist.
every single document regarding this specific case up to present day. This specific case, there's obviously been no conclusion, no findings of wrongdoing. In fact, there's been no point where the court has been asked to make determinations on whether or not like a genocide has occurred or something like this. There's been no point thus far. We're not there, unfortunately. We're just not there. When it comes down to this, the orders that have been made have been orders to protect the potential, the plausible rights alleged to exist by South Africa. But these plausible rights would also be found for any group of people, regardless of whether or not a genocide is occurring against them or not.
Okay, so again, I just want to show you that how dishonest he first said, "Oh, this is in its preliminary stages," and now that I was about to show him, he quickly switched up his energy.
No, it's still in its preliminary stages. Everything I just talked about is preliminary stages.
Stop. Can you not interrupt me, because I'm about to prove you're wrong. I'm going to show you why you haven't been paying attention at all, which is self-explanatory from a Zionist individual like yourself, from a Zionist sympathizer who's not interested in the truth, is interested in pushing an agenda. So take a look at what I post. Can you shut up, Elijah, for a second? So if you take a look, moderator, Jed.
Stop, Elijah. Just stay quiet.
Thanks. So as I was saying before, I was rudely yet again interrupted by Elijah on the pretense that he doesn't want me to actually expose his apartheid state, his apartheid Nazi state, the state of Israel. If you take a look, I'm going to repeat it.
I'm just going to...
We'll repeat it one more time. Look, the more you talk, I'll just go straight back to point one, and you'll sit there, and you'll be forced to listen to it. So again, as I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted by the Nazi-sympathizing individual who is in support of the Israeli state. I'll repeat it. It is very, very clear that they've not been paying attention. He says it's in its preliminary stages. I just sent the joint declaration of Judges Zub, Brandt, Gomez Robledo, and Taladi, who actually concluded the case. All he had to do was scroll down. But he doesn't like scrolling down, right? Just like he doesn't like scrolling through the evidence channel. Now, with that being said, we've posted it, yeah? The joint declaration, he says it's in its preliminary stages. The judges already signed their declaration. What preliminary stages?
Declarations of
They're all in
provisional
agreement.
measures.
Let me read.
These
Hold
are
on,
declarations of provisional measures that are assigned at the preliminary stages.
Kamikaze, let him just recite his last point, and that's it. Jihadist, make your last point.
Yep. So again, let's read. It directly tells you. Yeah. Let's read. He says, in 7, right? And the 8. Look what he says, because he says it's preliminary stages. Let's read the wording. In 8, he already says we agree with the factual finding of the court, but it's preliminary stages, but the court has already concluded a finding. But that's okay, because clearly he doesn't know international law. On premise 7, it says the following, right? He says in order 26, January 2024, the court determined that the Palestinians appear to constitute a distinct national, ethnical, racial, and religious group. Remember the Article 2 that I mentioned of the Genocide Convention. A protected group within the meaning of Article 2 of the Genocide Convention, which Kamikaze had the audacity to deny, and now when he's appealing to the ICJ, they spit right back in his face by saying they do quantify under the Genocide Convention. Where it says, moreover, the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip form a substantial part of the protected group, order of 26 January 2024, paragraph 45, the court further found that some of the rights claimed by South Africa, for which it is seeking protection, are plausible. Such plausible rights, in essence, bear on the fundamental right of the Palestinian people to existence. Then it goes on to say, Israel is the occupying power in the Gaza Strip. It controls Gaza's land
exactly
border
what I said,
and
just
all of
saying.
its land crossing, as well as its air and maritime areas. Israel's dominant control over the Gaza explains why Israel has the primary responsibility, which Kamikaze here
I don't
and
disagree
Elijah
with any
here
of this.
seemed so
Jihadist.
hinged to deny. At the beginning,
So he's
remember,
pretending-
for everyone that's... I'm almost done, but he's interrupting me. So, remember at the beginning when he denied, he said, no, Palestine doesn't fall under the Article 2. They do not fall under it's not a
didn't say
genocide.
that.
It's not a genocide. When I showed him the joint declaration, now
And
he's
nor does this
crying,
say that.
saying, no, I didn't say that. I never said that. Well, no problem. We'll let the
This
recording
does not
speak.
say
For now,
this.
I'll shut my
Okay,
mouth.
okay,
He's
okay,
talking
okay.
about me.
For now, I'll
I'm
shut my
sorry,
mouth.
I get to
And you can
respond. He
continue
continues
spewing
to
your
lie
lies.
about me.
Listen.
This is insane.
One second, Kamikaze. By the way, the time is up, but Kamikaze and Elijah, I'm going to let you make your final point, and then we can move on to the conclusion.
All of the things that just got read out there go towards the point specifically that I was making. Specifically, the point is that the court found that there is a plausible right. You wouldn't have a plausible right if you weren't one of the groups elucidated in the Genocide Convention. The reason why this is specifically said in the actual ruling that was passed down, specifically that they were not asked at this stage in the proceedings to have a look at any of the facts of the matter. The question is only, is there a plausible right to protection under the Genocide Convention? This exists for literally every group of people that is an ethnical group, a religious, or actually maybe not a religious group, I'll call back on that one, ethnical group, racial group, etc. In the world. They all have the plausible right to be protected under the Genocide Convention. And this is all that was being said in what Gigi was reading out. It is disingenuous to suggest that this is a ruling on the basis of the facts, that there is a genocide occurring. If that were the case, there wouldn't be an ongoing situation in front of the court.
Can I get one quote, one point?
All right, listen, Elijah, just make your, because I know you've been wanting to talk for a little bit.
Yeah, go
It's gonna
ahead.
be your
I'm
final
going to
point,
go ahead and
and
follow up after Elijah. Go ahead and make your point.
okay, yeah. Then since Yazan hasn't been speaking, we can just make that the final point. Then we can go on to
Okay,
the
so
Elijah,
conclusion.
go ahead.
there was a counter written by judges that opposed the ruling. The judges that opposed the ruling wrote in the report, quote, "We agree with the finding of the court. In our opinion, however, the court's factual findings should have led it to decide that Israel must suspend military operations in such a way so as to give full effect under its order. Much to our regret, the measure indicated in paragraph 2b does not extend far enough to make the point explicitly." I've put a quote in the Isreal Palestine chat. This is to say that Israel has not been found to have committed a genocide. If it was found to be committing a genocide, the ICJ would have had no choice but to order Israel to halt its military operations. This is to say that this decision has already been made. It's to miss it's to have not read the report, frankly.
Was that it?
Yeah, it was very good. Yeah, I'll try to talk quickly.
Okay, Yazan, this
All right,
is
so I'm
the
going to go
final
ahead and
point,
jump
and
into
then we're
the
going to go into
next
conclusions.
point here that I want to question both of you. Do either of you, for example, make the claim that Hamas's operation was that of a terrorist-like act from October 7th that is unjustified completely, apart from international law?
International law is the neutral standard.
Say that again?
International law is the neutral standard.
International law being the neutral standard. So how do you, for example, propose a nation of people that have been, particularly in Gaza?
You missed my answer. I don't like the question because international law is the neutral standard. So you say apart from international law, I say you can't have this discussion apart from international law because international law is the neutral standard by which we can use to judge these.
No, it's no problem at all. But the thing is if your country abided by international law, we'd actually be able to have a fair discussion. Yeah, if the country that you're taking the side of abided by international law, we could actually have a discussion. But I don't see why a nation of people that's been under such conditions for the last 80 years ought to follow international law with a society that does not. Up to 65 condemnations per year by the United Nations. We have statistics here on the people of Gaza prior to October 7th. We have Hamas's open declaration to a proper two-state solution as of 2017. We have open statements from Hamas pre-October 7th, in the midst of October 7th, and post up till today, demanding, for example, a peaceful solution. As of today, demanding that the ceasefire ensues in order to finally come to the table and also to release the hostages. Right? Israel is not really, engaging in some sort of a diplomacy-like system where it'll actually answer the diplomatic, calls made by Hamas prior to October 7th, leaving Hamas in Gaza zero room for negotiation in a peaceful manner. We have up to 81% of the population below the poverty line, 66% of the population unemployed. We have obviously the average majority of the population consisting of ages below 18. So, I mean, with regards to the power plants, sovereignty, water stations, anything that you can think of that would actually help this nation succeed, Israel has systematically brutalized and destroyed such attempts to create some sort of prosperity amongst this nation. It's basically a zero economy land. Money that comes in is actually effectively useless due to the lack of capability in certain terms of importing and exporting goods.
This is different to the question we were discussing before, because you keep on saying, like, referring to the 65 laws and then saying Israel is a violation of international law, is violating international law. And then
Hold on, Elijah, move up to your mic. Move up to your mic. We can't hear you.
Am I any better?
Yeah, we hear you now.
Okay, so you keep on referring to this sort of block of 65 laws that you said, and saying Israel is violating international law explicitly, and then we dug into one of those, and I reckon this would happen if we dug into the last one. And it didn't turn out to be quite nearly as explicit as you say, shall we say. We can do a debate about conditions in Gaza, but that's not what we're doing right now. Conditions in Gaza as of... Yeah, sorry.
Can that be the final point? That's it? Can we just go on to
the 65, now? I'm not talking about the 65 discriminatory laws in the Israeli state against the Palestinians. I'm talking about the 65, which ironically is the same number, 65 condemnations of Israel from the United Nations.
Okay, can we go on to the conclusions now?
Can I just get the final point in that you offered me?
Whatever, that's it. No
it's really difficult to hear you,
no back and forth. Just that's it.
Okay, so you said that Gaza is in terrible conditions because Israel is oppressing it. Let's take three standards that are generally used by which countries are judged as regarding the standard of living in their countries. Let's take life expectancy at birth, undefined infant mortality, and undefined mortality and just infant mortality in general. Look at life expectancy. The life expectancy in Gaza as of 2023 was 73 years, which is well above the global average if you were to look at it in global terms. If you look at infant mortality, it's something like 50 per 100,000 as of 2021. The global average was 28. This puts it above the global average. There isn't hardly if you take the global averages, there isn't hardly a standard by which you could say Gaza isn't marginally above the global average. This doesn't look like the conditions of a prison camp based on all the data, aside from the fact that it's assiduously claimed to be a prison camp by people who have political interest in the affairs of the Middle East. I'll put the sources in chat.
Yeah, send me the...
So from what I'm collecting from what you said, it's still very difficult to hear you. You're saying that the living conditions in Gaza actually,
we said
hold on, that was, I'm sorry, hold on, Yazan,
we said that was
listen
the
to the moderator.
Yeah, we said that was the last point. We have to, bro, we've been like past time and we need to go on to the conclusions. Yeah, we have to go on to the conclusions. But Elijah, send me, or Elijah and
Kamikaze. Everybody else speaking right now.
Yeah, Yazan, I definitely I understand the frustration there. I really do. But if you respond, he's going to want to respond. I
Yeah,
don't know
exactly.
what's
It's
going
just
to
gonna go
happen.
back and
Yeah.
forth. Because Yazan, you're supposed to have the final
Did you
point.
understand him,
'cause you didn't-
Kamikaze?
For the most part, his mic is horrific.
Yeah, his mic is kind of hard to understand.
Okay.
But Elijah, send me
Why'd
the
you ask for
sources
moderator exactly?
because I'm saying that we have to go into the conclusions. Like we can't just keep going back and forth on this point. But
Hello?
Elijah, send me the sources you want to send me. Kamikaze, send me the sources if you have any on this point, and I'll post them for you.
Hello?
I don't know if I don't know if I can. Oh, he can. The hell? Oh, he did it himself. Never mind.
Yeah, either that or Joester finally woke up and gave him it.
Okay.
For,
So we're gonna move
we
on to
cannot, we
conclusion.
unfortunately cannot give rules, so that's the problem. So we couldn't just do it on point.
Yeah. Wait, Yazan, can you hear me by the way? I don't think Yazan can hear me, but
Yazan, can you hear Saint Jad?
yeah.
I don't hear him speaking right now.
Oh,
Oh,
he
can you hear
is
me now?
speaking. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Jad, say something.
Yo, can you hear me?
No, okay. I have my stream open for the debate, but I can't actually hear him directly. One second, I'm leaving.
Yeah, because I was telling him to stop. I don't know if he's like. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay, can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you. Yeah.
All right, cool. Because I was like talking to you like for the whole time, and you just kept going. But
Sorry.
yeah,
man.
we need to move on to the conclusions or the closing statement. Going to be 12 minutes, 3 minutes each, and we're going to start off with Elijah. Or we can start off with anyone else. That doesn't really matter.
Elijah, you there, man?
Is he muted? No, he's not
He
muted.
is muted,
Right.
but like by him.
Yeah. You can start with Kamikaze.
I mean, I'm willing to conclude.
Yeah, go ahead. 3 minutes.
I think something that's become painfully obvious during this debate is that the other side is willing to post things that they haven't read. It's incredibly unfortunate. Furthermore, it is also obvious that it's quite difficult to read things in a way that is sufficient for comprehension for some people. At the end of the day, I do encourage everyone in the audience to, when you're making arguments on the basis of international law, to go and have a look at the actual international law. Actually have a look at the way in which these things are written. Really try and divorce your brain from the way you want to read terms. Instead, really consider what it is that the international law is saying, and hopefully what will happen is these two camps will come together a bit more on these questions of fact, and hopefully we end up with a good solution in the Middle East.
Is that it?
That's it.
All right. Elijah, you there? Nope. Yazan, Yazan or Jihadist? You guys want to take over 3 minutes?
Jihadist, go ahead. You're before me, anyways.
Yeah, so I was gonna say I think I do agree with one thing, and that there was one thing that was painfully obvious, is that there was a lot of switching in terms of the answers that I've gotten. We went from at the start saying that they're agnostic on the matter, to them suddenly switching their sides and they're no longer agnostic on the matter. We went from the Deir Yassin massacre being a massacre to not being a massacre. We went from define discrimination, and then turns out when discrimination disagrees with you, you end up not being able to make the point. Not a single one of our studies have been directly addressed. Rather, anything that has been addressed to it was just simply put, words beyond measure. In other words, just simply saying, oh, it's not true, or oh, I don't like it, or oh, it's impossible, and there isn't any actual study of the material that we provided. The third thing that I've tend to notice is that they generally give advice that they themselves cannot act upon. For example, when Kamikaze specifically said, and the opponents tried to argue, that Palestine does not fall under the second article of the genocide. Kamikaze first denied in the recording, and I'm sure anyone who would be listening, they'd be listening on YouTube, since this is the conclusion after all. They'd very clearly hear Kamikaze say, "No, I deny any genocide happened. I'm agnostic on the fact as to whether it's a genocide." When we sent him the ICJ ruling, he immediately conceded that there's a genocide. But the entire time, he was refusing to call Israel a genocidal state. This, to me, seems to indicate the opponent's positions being inconsistent. Clearly, there was not enough evidence that they sent, or they have not clearly delved into the topic as much as me and my debate partner Yazan have delved into it, considering not a lot of our claims have been addressed. All we've seen is some wishy-washy claims and dismissals of the studies that we've provided for the sake of word salads. We've seen filibustering. We've seen interruptions, and not any actual responses to any of the claims we made. All in all,
Domino.
I do think that we did provide something fruitful, and that is to the audience to show how, generally put, the opposition, when it comes to the ones that defend Zionism, clearly are at a loss, and when it comes to their debate angle, they seem to not even be aware of what they are defending.
Is that it?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Elijah, you can go.
Okay, so I'd like to start the final speech of this debate by taking some time to address the accusations of Kamikaze. Unfortunately, Kamikaze did not say it was a genocide, and nowhere in his recording. You'd like to refer to the recording, just refer back to it. Find me a
Hold on,
place.
Elijah, we can't
Yeah,
hear
Elijah,
you.
it's really hard to understand
Elijah,
you.
you can't just restart and lean further forward.
Is this any better?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Okay, I'll talk directly into my mic. I'd like to start by taking the closing speech of this debate in order to address some of the accusations made against my debate partner, Kamikaze. Firstly, you cannot show anywhere in the recording, nor will you be able to answer the debate that says where he claims that there was a genocide. It would be difficult to have a debate, but that would rely on the opposing side using their sources. Which unfortunately they haven't done. My debate on Kamikaze throughout this debate has quoted you from sources and left you stumbling.
It's very hard to understand you again.
Is it? No?
It's just hard to understand you.
Okay. Kamikaze has been reading your own sources throughout this debate. Your own sources disagree. Keep on saying to point to us to point to scholars, particularly Bruce, saying that for us to point to scholars that would agree with us, you seem to be unable to point to scholars that agree with you. All you're able to do is come up with scholars that like put forward scholars and links, and whenever they're investigated, they seem to not say what in fact you claim to be saying. It's a shame that Jihadists should think that about Zionists and our debating. It seems that the debating tactic used throughout this debate is little more debating tactic used by most pro-Palestinians historically when I debated them, which is lie and well, we make a claim, you lie about it. Then you talk for 10 minutes, and then you make an accusation against us, which turns out not to be true, and then you provide a link which doesn't verify the claim you just made, disagrees with your own very claims. So I'm sorry this debate has to go this way. I didn't intend for it, but in a sense, I'm glad people got to see your true colours. I yield my time.
All right, Yazan, you have 3 minutes. Wait.
All right, just to close this all off before Q&A, I want to, of course, thank everyone for coming out to watch. I want to thank the moderators for sticking around with this lengthy debate. Barakallah feekum, setting this up as well. This never goes unnoticed. And of course, we keep Brother Abdul Rahman in our prayers for not being able to make it due to some extreme circumstances last minute. We also thank Brother Jihadist for, as always, performing astoundingly and stepping up to the plate, inshallah, last minute. And then, of course, to wrap this all up, there's never enough time to discuss this conflict, to be honest. There's always more material ahead. I feel like, alhamdulillah, we posted our sources and backed up each and every one of our claims. Definitely more that could be talked about, and many technical difficulties. And of course, Elijah was not able to make it here on time. Mr. Weinstein, you were late. That will be taken into account. But regardless, alhamdulillah, it was a great debate. I believe we have proven that the state was founded upon terrorism and ethnic cleansing. Despite the lack of acknowledgement from our opponents, I believe that the state has founded as an apartheid regime and it continues to enact the same acts of South Africa and even potentially worse. We are fully capable and reasonable enough to justify the actions of Hamas and the Mujahideen in Gaza, as well as continue to justify their actions in the course of the Gaza war today. Alhamdulillah, I believe we did a great job. And please, everybody look through the sources that we've posted in the VC text, which not only discuss the ridiculous and preposterous claims of indigeneity of the Palestinians and that being refuted, but also the alleged war crimes beyond hostage taking that our opponents have tried to propose. Once again, I thank everybody for coming out. Walhamdulillah ala kulli shay. And thank you for everybody for coming out.
All right, now we're gonna do a 15-minute Q&A. We can do like, one
Can
each for
we
each
run?
side.
It's like 2:30 for me. Can we run next on 15 minutes?
I didn't hear what you said. Do you guys want to cut off the Q&A?
No, I'm happy to do it. I just need it to be like 15 minutes. It's nearly 2:30.
Okay. Yeah, we
I
can
like
make it
just staying 15 minutes.
just
I
15
will
minutes.
just
Okay.
have to
Yeah,
pray
yeah,
for
yeah.
5 minutes. So any questions directed at me, if you could just save them until I'm back, because I need to go pray.
Okay.
Go
Do you
ahead,
guys
Akhi.
want the people to come up, or do you prefer it being through chat, or do you guys prefer like both?
Whatever's quickest.
I have no
If they can
I have
come
no
up and
It's probably quicker. We could probably get more in if it's through chat, and then you can read it out.
Okay, I'll read it out then. Yeah, that's fine. And if you guys have any questions, we can start with Kamikaze and Elijah. It'll be both. One of them answers, or any, honestly, just whatever question you guys want directed at any. And by the way, ping the person you want me to talk to or talk about. Put it in the side chat. Okay, question for Yazan. Is Hamas an Iranian proxy?
no, I would not call Hamas an Iranian proxy, albeit they do get a lot of their arms from Iran or Iran. They are definitely not an Iranian proxy, as they are definitely independent, were an organization prior, and remain an organization irrespective of the goals and interests of Iran. An example of an Iranian proxy would be, for example, the Houthis in Yemen or Hezbollah in Lebanon. However, with that being said, Hamas does operate independently, regardless of what Iran's goals and interests are, and there's merely just a temporary benefit for a larger issue at hand as of now. And the person who
Just to
asked that
clarify,
is a troll, anyways.
just to clarify, Hamas were an organization prior to Iran. That's your claim?
Okay, let's Elijah. This isn't like a
Oh, sorry, my
question.
bad,
This is a Q&A. If you guys have any contentions with this, you guys can have like an informal discussion after the debate or after the stage is over.
Sorry, my bad.
Question for Kamikaze. Do you agree that Israel is terrorist?
It's sort of it's a misuse of words. To say that an organization is terrorist, I think would be not accurate. My specific statement would be that individual people can be terrorists. They can commit the war crime of terrorism as individuals. It is far more when we look at organizations that put the word terrorist onto larger groups of people, they tend to broaden the definition of terrorist. So they'll do things like exclude, only include non-state actors, etc. So I just don't agree with the use of the word in that context.
Question for Elijah and Kamikaze again. What is your preferred outcome for the war? Any of you guys can answer this.
Yeah, I can take it if you want.
Yeah, if you want.
My preferred outcome to the war is that Hamas is destroyed and that there's a temporary administrative government of non-Israeli act. I don't want Israel in the region afterwards. Sort of coalition of preferably Arab states in the region that would form an administrative government that would exclude Hamas.
We definitely hear you.
Yeah, it's hard to hear you.
I want Israel to win and then Hamas to be taken off the table, and then Israel to leave and allow the government of comparative Arab states, surrounding Arab states, to form a government that excludes them.
Right. Question for Jihadist and or Yazan. How did the original Jews lose their ethnicity after migrating around the world? And if it is because they lost their religion and married non-Jews, can you please provide any sources?
You
I'll
want
let
to go
Jihadist
first,
take
or
this one.
Okay, I'll go. So what I'm saying is the opposite. What I'm saying is that the Jews themselves do not have any form of ethnic background to that land. And what I mean by this is that it's in accords with what they believe themselves. They cannot come and say, as Jews, we belong to this land, when, and I'll post it here in side chat for you. They don't even believe they owned that land to begin with. It was a bunch of Canaanites. They came and slaughtered them and then took their place. That doesn't make you native to the land. That just makes you someone who came, kicked out the original people, and then settled in, just as they are doing to the Palestinians. What I'm saying is just as it's extremely ironic that the Canaanites themselves were the ancestors of the Palestinians. And so it's just simply put, what I'm pointing out is that what's been happening to the Canaanites is now just happening to the Palestinians again. But this time, instead of it being for the sake of Yahweh, it's now for the sake of Netanyahu.
All right, is that it? Next question for Elijah and Kamikaze. I didn't get a clear position. Do you guys acknowledge what happened at Deir Yassin? Massacre includes massacring men, children, women, stripping them, putting them into trucks, and Jews dumped 150 bodies into a cistern in order to hide the horrors and mutilation committed by them. And do you condemn their actions?
There was a book recently written about the subject called The Massacre of the Devil Was, which I refer people to on the question. When it comes to condemning Israel, there were particular deaths which were clearly criminal. But when it comes to condemnation of Deir Yassin as a whole, we'd like to go through individual people, as the book that I refer you to does, go through individual cases of all 107. I might also reject this 250 number that was an original guesstimate. It was an original estimate that didn't turn out to be true.
Is that it?
Yep.
All right,
It was 107 villages at this point.
All right. Question for Jihadist. Can an Ash'ari ta'wil Israel to the... Okay, I'm joking. Where's this question? Okay, for
Answer
Jihadist.
would be no.
Okay. For Jihadist, for the rest of the people, would you mind expanding on 1867 and the agenda of the Zionist Congress and relate it to the modern period? And can you expand upon the implications?
1897 or 1857.
Anyways.
Yeah, so it's referring to the first Zionist Congress, right, which took place in August 29 to 31, 1897, right, in the city of Basel. Yes, so expanding on it, it is very clear that from the start, their delegations and their agenda and all of their opening speeches, namely the following individuals that I'm about to name, people like Mayor Ebner, Bingham Amrain, and Theodore Herzl, who have unanimously came in and they fully agree, and even Mordecai Ehrenpress, who went over and quite literally said they want to seek, as a home in Palestine by the virtue of violence. They themselves admit this. In the goal that is secured under public law, or is commonly referred to as the Basel Program, they adopted the following terms, right? They said, they expedite promotion of the settlement of Jewish agriculturists, artisans, and businessmen in Palestine. So they wanted to overtake the land by virtue of increasing their agriculture, artisans, and businessmen. So they never had an intention to come settle alongside. They wanted to take them and overpower the Palestinians utilizing these things, and that's realistically what happened. Second thing, the organization and bringing it together of all Jews through local and general events, according to the laws of various countries, right? They wanted to bring everyone who was just a Jew into this area forcibly to maintain the very first premise that they put out. And I want you to notice why the first premise is not the second one. It's listed as the primary goal. So the primary goal is going to be the first one, and the primary goal is to simply put, forcibly overtake the Palestinians. And then comes in, oh, but we also need all the Jews in the world to do this thing. The strengthening of Jewish feeling and national consciousness. I never really understood what's Jewish feeling. Okay, I don't think there's an emotion called Jewishness. And as for the national consciousness of what? If they are meant to be living alongside the Palestinians. Well, they expand on it. And 4, it says preparatory steps for obtaining the governmental approval which is necessary to the achievement of the Zionist purpose, which they proceeded to found the following thing. The foundation of the Zionist organization, the Basel program, which is listed above, the absorption of the most previous Hovevei Zion societies, the suggestion for the establishment of a people's bank, and the election of Herzl as the president of the Zionist organization, and Max Nordau as one of the principals. And then he says the following, were I to sum up the Basel Congress in a word, which I shall guard against pronouncing publicly, it will be this. At Basel, I found the Jewish state. If I said this out loud today, I would be greeted by universal laughter. In 5 years, perhaps, and certainly in 50 years, everyone shall perceive it. So he said, if I go out in public and I tell you guys that we are going to forcibly overtake the Palestinians, scheme them in businesses, forcibly kick them out by utilizing our agricultural settlers, do all of these things, everyone would laugh at me, and laugh at him they did. And 50 years later, when it all came true and they actually began committing war crimes, there's one thing that didn't change. We're still laughing at them today.
Hi, Jihadist, you good? You done?
Is this something for us all to respond to?
No, you can respond. This is only a Q&A, so you can respond if you guys want to have
No,
a
I mean
Q&A.
just a question. I mean just a question.
A question to Jihadist?
Yeah, I thought you said
No.
the question. Okay, sorry. I thought you
No,
were
if you
the
guys want to
World
have like
Finance Congress question.
some sort of informal dialogue after this the stage, you guys can. Okay, question for
Okay.
Kamikaze. Kamikaze, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Do you want Palestine to coexist with Israel, or do you want Israel to control the entire land, including what is known as Palestine?
So I want whatever solution ends up peacefully and respects the rights of effectively all citizens in that land, whether they be citizens of Palestine or citizens of Israel. There are so many different potential conclusions that might happen in this conflict. It could be that we end up with one state. I think it's unlikely and incredibly unlikely that that would be able to protect the rights of each individual. But like obviously. I want like Palestinian peoples and Israeli peoples to be able to live harmoniously. I think it's obvious that that's the case.
All right, I'm not really seeing any questions for Jihadist or Yazan right now. Or Hamza, is this? Oh, that was that you, the one that Hamza made? Okay.
Yep.
So even the original Jews that lived in the Canaan region were originally from Egypt. If yes, in other words, it means that there were no original Jews in the Canaan region. Palestine, anyways, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said earlier, this went from from Joshua's invasion of the Canaanites, which is why I listed him earlier. This is in accords. This isn't in accords with me. This is in accords with the God that Elijah worships. He tells him he doesn't belong in that land. He tells him this is just a promised land for you. There are people already living there, and under Moses they were afraid to fight them, so they waited for Joshua. And then when Joshua came and he led them after Moses' death, he went and they slaughtered them. And it directly says it very clearly. Not even animals were spared. So as far as I'm concerned, before Israel even existed, they always had a genocidal intent for that region. First against the Canaanites, and now against the Palestinians.
Am I allowed to sort out lies about the talk? Is that a thing that I can respond to?
No, you can't respond. This is a Q&A.
Elijah, we're gonna definitely get into an informal debate as soon as
Yeah,
possible.
informal debate you guys want.
I can't do it because it's 2:30 and I have to be up at 7:30.
Look, Elijah,
If
I
I
understand. Look, Elijah, I understand you disagree with a lot of what they're saying, but this is a Q&A, this debate, the stage has been dragged on for a really long time. Just let the Q&A keep on how it is. Like,
Okay.
relax. I don't know if maybe Kamikaze would want to have an informal discussion with them after. It's their choice, whatever, I don't care. Okay, question for Kamikaze, though. Why do you guys think Palestinians embrace violent resistance?
It's multivariate. There's a genuine, like deep-held belief amongst many Palestinians that violence resistance is the way in which you get to what they would consider be like a just solution. I think this is incredibly misguided, but obviously there's disagreement amongst that. But yeah, I think that's probably the reason. They think that it's going to be efficacious.
All right. Question for Elijah. Do you condemn Israel putting a caloric limit on the Gazans, the Gazans?
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Right.
The answer is I need to look more at the case. So I've read a little bit about it, and the answer I think is yes. But when it comes to the amount of food getting into Gaza, it certainly wasn't insufficient quantity in order to sustain the Gaza population. So if you just look at the number of trucks getting in per day, for instance, even during the war, you have enough trucks that it would feed the average American diet in terms of quantity of food. If you were to just look at the 70% of the supplies getting in that were food. So I'd have to look more at the specific. The answer is I don't really know, but kind of yes. I would condemn it.
Okay.
Jed, I don't want to. Just 1 second. This is for Joe. To Elijah and Kamikaze, I should take the second. Also, the other people in the audience. The server is offering people to have their own designated VCs where they have some powers that are limited, of course, but somewhat moderation style. Elijah, there's already a VC that's kind of dedicated to like the Israeli issue in support of like held by Israelis. If you'd like your own VC dedicated to this, which has a large audience consistently, of course, you're more than welcome to. Same with Kamikaze. We guys could both share moderation powers. There's one called Free Shekels. That's kind of like, led by a Zionist or an Israeli. But if you guys would like your own, of course, and then it goes same to the audience, as long as you have a following in a major topic, definitely recommend it. And this brings a lot of traction and attention to topics at hand.
Okay, well, time's kind of up for me 'cause it's about 2:40 where I am.
No.
Yeah.
This like the whole thing of the
Look,
VC.
we very much appreciate the offer, and we can talk about it further later if you want.
This is something you guys have to talk about further. Or like later after.
Yeah.
You just put in
No, I really appreciate the offer, mate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much for listening.
Okay, then we only have like 2 minutes left of the Q&As. Question for Yazan and Jihadist. If Hamas gets control of Palestine, how sure can you be that they will not retaliate the same way Israel does?
I'll answer on this one. So, regards to Hamas's intent and overall its trajectory, if it were to gain control of Palestine, we can see with the behavior of Hamas post 2015, 2017, change of charter, change of politicians and diplomacy. Hamas is more than willing to negotiate and get to the table in a diplomatic manner, and it is more than willing to abide by the Islamic rules of war and engagement. So I would have zero doubt of Hamas's capability of leading the land peacefully. Whether it gains control of the territories today that are identified as Palestinian occupied territories or the totality of the land, which I would have no issue with them controlling either. They clearly have engaged in humane conduct with their hostages. They have engaged in humane conduct on October 7th in the heat of the moment. We have testimony that we've posted for this and proof with video evidence. And that's a small snippet within a larger snapshot. However, I see no evidence or no reason to doubt the capability of Hamas in controlling the land, both for Muslims, Jews, and Christians and other ethnicities as well, when it comes to sovereignty and just overall like running a government.
Oh, sorry, just to intervene, I think Elijah's time has run out, just to be clear.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like Kamikaze, because I just have one final question, so I don't really see any
Yeah.
other questions for you guys, but I personally have a question to you. So you mentioned earlier that you would say that Mandela is a terrorist because he violated international law, but then you also admitted that the illegal settlements of Israel are illegal and violate international law.
Sorry, just to clarify, I understand the question. Just to clarify, it's not that he violated international law. You can violate international law without being a terrorist. It's just specifically violating international law by doing terrorism, which is specifically defined in international law. I believe it's the Hague Convention.
Okay, thank you. That kind of just made a distinction that was towards my question. Okay.
Well, I'd like to thank you very much for moderating the debate. It's been a little more people, less light than I expected. But
no problem.
Thank you very much. I'd be interested in doing this again, possibly at some point.
Yeah, you guys can also the offer about
I'm
your
very
VC.
sorry. I'm very sorry to make this evening.
No problem.
Good night.
Night.
We'll start a GoFundMe as well, Elijah, for your new mic. maybe we'll get the Rothschild.
I'd like to likewise thank you guys for your time and your ears and your mouths. Thank you very, very much for having this conversation.
No problem.
Thank you very much for being here.
Appreciate your presence.
Have a good one, guys.